Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401 Reinforcement. The Twilight Princess was startled. She didn't know what the big green monster was. It felt so scary. Suddenly, the statue of the goddess Hylia appeared in front of her. Around the statue, there was a woman like a veil, which made the Twilight Princess feel very familiar. The veil-like girl floated in front of the Twilight Princess. "We need to do something," the Twilight Princess asked in confusion. "Who are you?" The girl said. "We are just like you, different forms of the same soul." Yes, we are all Zelda." The girl hugged the Twilight Princess. The Twilight Princess opened her eyes wide. She actually felt that there were 3 different wills in this girl's body. Zelda, the Sky Princess, and the Washan Princess appeared in front of her. The will of the Trinity said, "Link has collected the water beads of light. Please use the water beads of light to awaken the sleeping warrior souls on the earth and help Link fight together." Outside, Midona's hair suddenly seemed to be pulled by something, and the light container she and Link collected suddenly flew out. This is what Link spent a lot of effort to collect. Midona reached out to grab it, but the light container broke with a snap, and the light beads inside flew in the air like stars. Midona looked left and right and said guiltily, "I didn't break this thing." She looked around, but found that the light beads had also disappeared. Midona opened her mouth wide, and her canine teeth were exposed. She said blankly, "Did the water beads evaporate?" In the Shadow Kingdom, a drop of golden water fell from several struggling souls, as if brewed by invisible leaves. Boom. Souls appeared one after another. Rogers, Natasha, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Loki, and Pepper appeared here. "Is this the Shadow Kingdom?" Natasha said, looking at the gloomy sky. "It seems." It turned out that it was Hulk who spoke. Everyone was startled again and turned around to see Hulk sitting on a huge shadow dinosaur, looking unhappy. The remaining creatures of the Shadow Kingdom, a strange-looking dinosaur, were bruised and swollen and silently shed tears that formed a small river. "Link is fighting Ganon. I use the water beads of light to wake you up. Please help Link." A girl who had never appeared before Rogers appeared in front of them in the form of light. Rogers frowned and asked, "You are?" Although the girl's facial features were extremely beautiful, she looked very strange, but it seemed that she had seen it somewhere before. The Scarlet Witch thought about it and hurriedly shouted, "You are Zelda." You can't tell by just looking at her face, but Zelda's temperament is very unique. After the Scarlet Witch called out like this, everyone immediately realized that this girl who looked like light and soul was actually Zelda. But, which Zelda is this? Zelda has already spoken. "We 4 Zeldas all have a common soul. This is the state of my soul. The situation is urgent. Link needs your help. Please." Loki spread his hands. "But where can we find Link?" "There." Hulk pointed his thick green finger at the sky flashing with lightning in the distance. "There is a bad smell there." Rogers clenched his shield. "Okay. Let's go to the battle. Avengers, charge." He gritted his teeth and ran in that direction, feeling the wind brushing his face. But he was a little discouraged as he ran, because the direction Hulk pointed was too far away. What was even more strange was that he glanced around and found that none of his usually reliable comrades followed him, so he looked back angrily. "What are you doing? Are you scared?" And now, everyone has climbed onto the shadow dinosaur that was defeated by Hulk, and they all looked at Rogers with the look of looking at a fool. Natasha tilted her head and smiled. "You don't want to run over there onto legs, do you?" Scarlet Witch smiled and said, "When you get there, I'm afraid Link will be beaten into a pig's head." Hulk roared in a sullen voice, "Get in the car." He slapped the shadow dinosaur on the head fiercely, and the shadow dinosaur ran forward desperately in pain. Rogers, who was on the road, kicked several times, stepped on the tree to gain leverage, jumped onto the back of the shadow dinosaur, and roared, "Charge! Hulk, TSK! Hulk's dragon!" Loki was stunned and saw the girl of light behind him standing quietly and then disappeared. Loki thought to himself, "It seems that you have something to do too." Zelda came to a strange space. This is the intersection of the Shadow Kingdom, where Midona was born, the real world, and the dark multiverse of Dormammu. 3 shadow crystal stones combined into a crown. Dormammu, who was corrupted by the power of Ganon and Zant, was torn into 3 parts by the shadow crystal stone. Noticing Zelda flying over, Dormammu let out a threatening roar. Zelda whispered, "A soul that is afraid is easily devoured by evil. I'm here to save you." At the same time, Zelda appeared in the Kingdom of Shadows, the real world, and the dark world, stroking the small harp in her hand. Along with the music, the princess's light singing sounded, echoing in the 3 worlds. Dormammu lost his mind. When he heard this ancient song, it was as if something hard in his heart was broken, which made him panic. He rushed towards Zelda and attacked. Link's shield deflected a beam of light, and he immediately lowered and rolled to avoid a large number of attacks. Wherever he passed, there were large pits made by the enemy. The Dragon Soul greatsword in his hand did not stop, and it was constantly swinging. He suddenly jumped into the sky and saw a flying guardian blocking the path. The light pressed the crystal shield to knock Link down. Boom. Link threw blue light bombs frequently, and the guardians flew away one after another. The ground beneath his feet had been destroyed beyond recognition by the guardians, so a smooth layer of ice was laid directly on it. Link dodged left and right, sliding on the ice, and shuttling between the enemies. From time to time, the sound of machine explosions could be heard, and wherever he passed, the broken bodies of the guardians were all there. Although Link was in a passive state of siege, he had the perspective of God and other abilities. In this intensive group battle, he fought extremely happily, and was almost unstoppable. The humanoid Ganon who was watching the battle outside was impressed by the powerful fighting power that Link had burst out in the predicament. He clapped his hands and smiled evilly. "You are worthy of being my destined enemy, but you can't escape the fate of dying of exhaustion." The young brave man fighting alone. Link was getting more and more anxious. There were too many enemies around him. No matter how strong he was, he only had 2 legs and 2 arms, and he couldn't kill them at all. Once he was exhausted, Ganon would definitely come out, and then defeat would be inevitable. At this time, Link. Hulk punched his chest with his fist and roared. Welcome to Vote and Subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 402 Ace vs. Ace. Link saw a black dinosaur crashing into the army of guardians, and the people and horses were thrown to the ground. The Guardian army locked onto Link, but was knocked out by the shadow dinosaur. Falcon followed closely behind, firing a volley of bullets, which made sparks on the guardians, but did not cause any damage. A large number of guardians around reacted and released a large number of lasers at the shadow dinosaur. Scarlet Witch raised her hand, and the scarlet power flew out like a sunset glow. Her face turned pale. Scarlet Witch originally wanted to fight back the Guardian's light, but 1 or 2 beams were fine, but this huge amount of light was beyond her control. In a hurry, Scarlet Witch waved her hands, and the lasers shot at her were distorted, all of which produced light folds. The shadow dinosaur was unharmed, and the lasers directly injured the surrounding circle of guardians by mistake, and there was another series of flames, and the flames almost burned to the sky. Rogers jumped down in a hurry and shouted to Link, "We are here." Nori shouted happily, "Great, great." Link was also excited and waved his hand. With courage in his heart, he waved the Dragon Soul greatsword and swung out the fiery sword energy. Bang, bang, bang. Nori shouted in a hurry, "The Guardian's one eye is a weakness. Attacking other places is useless." Natasha held the gun with both hands and raised her eyebrows. "It's easy to deal with if there is a weakness." 2 lasers shot at Natasha, but she was unmoved. She first fired 2 shots and then rolled away calmly. Natasha and Hawkeye's weapons were both upgraded by Tony. Both Natasha's short stick and pistol had strong destructive power. The bullet hit the Guardian accurately, and with a snap, the Guardian was hit stiff and turned his head wildly. Falcon's goggles showed that 4 guardians were locked by him, and a volley of bullets swept them away again. He was also targeted by 3 flyers, so he hurriedly accelerated his flight. Loki smirked as he watched a bunch of guardians walking around him. He shrugged and said, "Come on, you guys are so enthusiastic." Just as the guardians were about to attack, Loki's light changed, and he also became a guardian shaking his legs, his stiff neck turning back and forth. The surrounding guardians were stunned for a moment and scattered. Beep. Rogers was hit by a guardian's laser, and his vibranium round shield resisted. He gritted his teeth and stepped forward against the light, shaking his arm fiercely, and the light was refracted to another guardian and detonated. And Pepper flew around his head, bombarding everywhere with lasers. Seeing Link flying by him, he happily shook his hand. Yo. Brave master. Link gave Pepper a thumbs up and swung his sword again. At the same time, a thunderbolt came down from the sky and hit the center of the guardian. The humanoid Ganon snorted softly. Even if a bunch of helpers appeared, it couldn't change Link's fate. Natasha rushed forward and thrust her short stick into the guardian's eyes, detonating it. She backflipped to avoid the explosion, but her body was quickly locked by 3 guardians. A hot light hit her face. Just as Natasha's smooth face was burned by the laser, Roger stood in front of her and blocked the attack with his round shield. Then Hulk flew over and punched the guardian, breaking his body and knocking down 2 or 3 guardians behind him. At this time, Pepper suddenly fell to the ground. Natasha hurriedly picked him up, only to see Pepper shaking his head and saying, "Pepper is fine." Rogers looked at his companions fighting around him. He was a little discouraged. Their arrival did help Link share a lot of pressure, but it seemed that it was still limited. Lasers were shooting everywhere, and Hulk was a little dusty. He just saw Link rescue the besieged Falcon, and Link waved the crystal shield left and right. How long has Link persisted alone in this heavy siege? It's really hard for him. There are still not enough people, Rogers thought. The Scarlet power was everywhere, and there were too many enemies. After the initial great power of the Scarlet Witch, she couldn't adapt to it. She was gradually restrained, and began to be unable to do her best. Boom. An oversight. The arranged Scarlet power was pierced by the light and poked towards her. The Scarlet Witch covered her face and screamed. Link's divine perspective immediately captured it and flew away quickly. Ganon whispered, "Let your companions die in front of you one by one." A large number of guardians began to stop Link. Link angrily swung a large piece of thunder power. Darkle's roar resounded through the sky, and a huge number of guardians were blown off Link's body at once. But despite the great power, the rescue of the Scarlet Witch was still hindered. Just when everyone thought that the Scarlet Witch was going to die here, a red figure passed by, and Scarlet Witch closed her eyes tightly and heard a pleasant voice, "You are safe." It was Vision, who hurried over and looked at her with a smile. "We are late." A huge figure fell from the sky and knocked down 3 or 4 guardians. Rogers and others looked closely and found that it was a huge tattered robot, as if it had experienced a war. This robot was obviously pieced together with some broken structures, and the whole body was full of traces of rushwork. Because it was also a machine, the Guardian was a little hesitant, because it was difficult to judge whether it could attack. But this tattered robot took the lead. 8 laser launch ports appeared on its body, and 8 thick lasers suddenly shot out, causing people and horses to fall to the ground. Amid the sound of lasers, Tony's voice was heard. "How is my new toy? This is the mecha I put together with Veronica and the anti-Hulk device. It looks terrible, and its destructive power is even more so." Roger smiled and shook his head. "This is the first time I'm so happy to see Tony." Natasha was in joy, and suddenly something seemed to pass by her body. Quicksilver smiled at her, snatched her short stick, and said, "Lend it to me to play with." Then he teleported away. There were only a few clicks, and a figure passed by in front, and a hole was poked in the single eye of more than 10 guardians. This was obviously done by Quicksilver. Tony pointed at Ganon with his thick mechanical arm, and shouted at Link, "Zelda brought us here with the light water beads. Are you idle? Come to deal with the soldiers? Leave this to us. You just go and kill Ganon. Ace against ace. Go. Don't worry about anything else." Link nodded heavily, and his eyes met with Ganon in the air. The wings suddenly flapped, and it flew over. Ganon said in a deep voice, "You who have lost the sword of the brave are not worthy to be my opponent." The land in front of Ganon suddenly bulged, and several thick iron pillars emerged, and suddenly exploded, and a large number of humanoid guardians crawled out with blue blades in their hands. Welcome to subscribe and collect to support genuine works. Thanks to Lily Aquarius for supporting 100 starting coins. Chapter 403 My Lord Link, your servant Faye serves you. Another obstacle. Link's eyes were blazing, and he jumped down, and stepped on the ground, moving his body in a lightning-like manner, dodging a large number of enemies. He rushed straight towards the humanoid Ganon, dragging the Master Sword upwards and slashing it. Crack. Ganon jumped up, and the Ganon pollution under his feet stretched out. A 3-meter tall unknown horse wearing black armor raised its iron hoof and flicked Link's blade with one hoof. Then he stepped heavily on the ground. The power of darkness seeped in, and several guardian daggers stabbed out from the ground and stabbed at Link. Link flew into the sky, and the humanoid Ganon gathered light and hit him hard. After Link dodged one by one, Ganon sat on the unknown horse and took off the shining great sword of light from his waist, the Sage's Sword. This sword was originally made by an ancient sage to seal Ganon's sword, but it was taken away by Ganon, and he killed the sages who tried to seal him. The Sage's Sword swung at him, and Ganon smiled evilly. The fun ends here, and you die. The Dragon Soul Great Sword rang with Fang's fighting spirit, but Link hurriedly retreated. He didn't know the power of the Sage's Sword yet, and was worried that the Dragon Soul Great Sword would break and hurt Fang if it fought against it. So he swung the crystal shield and attacked. Bang! After swinging the shield back, Ganon's body leaned back violently. Even the Sage's Sword could still be countered by the shield. Taking advantage of this gap, Link rushed forward, but there was a lot of light coming from behind him. Link didn't open his eyes, but his eyes were fully open, and he clearly captured the malice, so he turned around and swung the shield again to counter the shield, and a large group of humanoid guardians fell to the ground. But this also made Link's first chance to attack Ganon disappear. Navi said, "We must first eliminate these humanoid guardians." But at this moment, Ganon suddenly swung out a black sword energy, which looked very much like the sword of Dark Link. It was really strange to use a sword that was full of light to slash out such a dark sword energy. Link also immediately swung out a fiery sword light, forming a fang-like fire dragon in the air and charging up. The two forces collided with each other. Just as the god's perspective captured that the humanoid guardian was about to continue to interfere with Link, a tired shout came, "Don't delay a good show." A large number of spark light circles appeared around, and Strange and the magicians of the magic temple appeared. They also got Zelda's light beads. In his hand, a spark-like rope stretched out and quickly strangled the humanoid guardian's neck, and Strange led the mages to set up the familiar magic trap again. Several golden light walls appeared around Link and Ganon's bodies, and there were only the two of them. Strange nodded at Link. "No one will disturb you from fighting anymore. Give it a try." Ganon glared at Strange. "You lowly mortal, you are resisting so stubbornly." Clang. Link didn't want to hear Ganon's threatening words. He pulled out Mistatin and followed Strange's example to strangle Ganon's neck and drag him over fiercely. Navi flew up in a hurry, and Ganon was locked with a triangular white light lock on his body. 4 heroes appeared behind Link, and the mark of the Holy Triforce appeared on their chests. The complete Triforce of Courage burst out, and Link pushed the Dragon Soul Great Sword flashing with lightning and fire, piercing Ganon's chest like a meteorite that was destroying the world. Ganon raised his head and roared, pulling off Mistatin, breaking the Nordic artifact that had accompanied Link for a long time. A large number of demonic shadows appeared around, black phantoms, with a big smile cracking out of their mouths, gradually becoming hideous, and biting the Dragon Soul Great Sword. The 3 wheels of the light spirits that were rotating around Link's body suddenly burst into strong light, and then layers of energy like water waves poured into the Dragon Soul Great Sword. The surrounding python-like demonic shadows scattered one after another. Link stabbed Ganon in the chest with a sword. AHH. Link roared, and all his strength suddenly poured out. A huge amount of it was infused into the sword, and then with the transformation of the Dragon Soul Great Sword, the power increased, rushing out and penetrating Ganon's body. But it was as if nothing had happened. Ganon sneered at Link. "Your sword is not sharp enough." The roar of a furious dragon came. Ganon slashed the sage's sword diagonally, and the dark sword light rushed over, making Link's hair stand up. It hit the crystal shield that came hastily. Link was thrown out and hit the wall of light. Ganon urged his warhorse to run over, holding the sage's sword high, wanting to kill Link. Link stood up with blood vomiting, trying to gather strength, but the influence of the curse power in his body made him somewhat powerless, and he was very unwilling. At this time, Yaya in the Dragon Soul Greatsword made a decision and rushed out immediately, blocking Link. Regardless of everything, he rushed towards the Sage Sword, even if he sacrificed himself to protect Link. Link lost his voice. No. In an instant, a shattering sound came from his body. Link immediately felt the weapon space in his body, and the Exorcist sword was quickly coming out, and a purple light flashed. The Master Sword was restored. "My lord Link, your servant Faye serves you," a girl like a sapphire said to Link in an indifferent tone. Faye, the sword spirit in the Master Sword, actually awakened on the day when the broken sword was recast. The Master Sword in Link's hand glowed, and he held it. The sword of the brave will not break. Does Link lack courage? He does not lack it, and he understood it in his heart. The triangle of courage was completed by relying on the dedication of the Ancient One. And the reconstruction of the Master Sword also depends on the dedication of Yaya. The cursed power in the body was immediately swept away by the Holy Sword energy when the Master Sword was restored. Bullet time quickly flashed, and Link rushed forward to block Fang, swinging the revived Master Sword to fight against the Sage Sword. The collision of the Sword of the Brave and the Sword of the Sage. Time returned to normal, and the air around him banged with a muffled sound. The land exploded, and the light wall around him broke. The released force made the mages spit blood one after another. Strange hurriedly looked back. "Please, what are you doing?" Then he was stunned. Link and Ganon took a step back. The Master Sword was in Link's hand, buzzing, and seemed very excited. There was chaotic sword energy everywhere, escaping everywhere. The space began to become unstable. Link's eyes were like fire, and Ganon looked at the glowing cracks on his chest in horror. This was seen by the Master Sword. The Master Sword has its own soul. Now that the sword's soul has awakened, it will be the most deadly edge against evil. The will of the light spirit in Link's body spun rapidly and turned into a ball of light. Odin, Pharaoh, and Latanu, three light spirits appeared behind Link and roared. Suddenly, the battlefield was filled with the clear voices of the light spirits. Light waves spread out on the ground, and a dragon-like light spirit rose up. With the roars of the three light spirits, the fourth light spirit Lanel also appeared behind Link. Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 404, The Princess Divided into Four. Seal Ganon. The power of the four light elves behind him gathered together, and converged on the blade. A beam of light broke out from Link's body and shot straight into the sky. The scorching light broke through the thick dark clouds in the sky, revealing the blue sky. The Avengers and the Magicians and Guardians of the Magic Temple fought fiercely, and the battle between the two sides was the most intense. Even after the four light elves appeared, the red light on the Guardians suddenly stopped, and the lower limbs were weak and collapsed to the ground. Falcon and Pepper dodged the Guardians falling from the sky. Tony's temporary armor could not support it and collapsed immediately. He stumbled down, and Rogers kindly supported him. Tony wondered, are these robots out of power? Strange shouted, no. Their connection with Ganon has been blocked by the light spirit. Rogers said, Link is ready for the final confrontation with this Ganon. Tony panted, I really hope there will be popcorn and coke to cheer me up. Midona on the tower also opened her eyes wide and looked at Link, who was building up his momentum. Ganon's face finally darkened. This kind of power, the revived Master Sword, directly activated Link's power completely. His momentum rose rapidly, and the sword energy emanating from the surroundings drew deep marks on the ground. You have grown to this point. Ganon's expression showed a rare fear. He didn't even want to confront Link head on, because after the Master Sword was awakened, Link's power was so strong that it could subvert the entire Shadow Kingdom. The four light spirits said to Link, we can help you with 4 sacred sword energies. Leave it to you. Ha. Swinging a sword, Link's roar followed the sword light. Ganon was aroused by Link's terrible oppression, and he also swung the sage sword fiercely, and the dark and hideous power burst out. Bang. Ganon was knocked away, and a wound appeared on his chest, which quickly expanded. The wound was full of brilliant white light, and the sacred power corroded Ganon's dirty body. Ganon roared, defeat. I won't do it again. But Link immediately followed with a second sword energy. He hit Ganon again without mercy. Ganon flew out, and cracks of light began to spread from the sword mark on his chest. Ganon's body was full of cracks, as if it would fall apart at any time. Ganon finally lost his will to fight. turned around and mounted his horse to retreat. A dark door suddenly appeared behind him, leading to another corner of the universe. He wanted to escape. For the first time, Link forced Ganon to escape for the first time. The third sword energy. Link shouted, "Navi, leave it to me." Navi locked Ganon tightly. The sword energy swung fiercely on Ganon's back, and Ganon roared, and even the cracks of light all over his body expanded rapidly. Ganon's body exploded, and a black gas floated out of his body. He went into the door and disappeared. Yair let out a long and happy roar, and his body quickly grew larger, and Link stood on the dragon's head. Yair immediately took off. Everyone watched Link ride the dragon into the sky, looking at the strong, but not dazzling white light on the Master Sword. Link thought, this is the last power of the light spirit. Looking up at the sky, the sword opened up the world. Snap. The sword energy split the dark clouds in the sky. The dark clouds dissipated in an instant, and the sun shone on the Avengers and the Magic Temple wizards. Everyone's body was shining, as if covered with a layer of gold powder. Midona looked at the brilliant light in the sky and clearly felt that the Shadow Kingdom was collapsing and fading. The territory of the earth began to recover rapidly with Link's sword as the center. Ganon retreated. Peppa shouted happily, "We won." But Link was a little unwilling. Ganon's original power still escaped. At this time, Zelda's voice rang in his ears. It's okay, he can't run away. Only to see that at the intersection of the Kingdom of Shadows, the real world, and the Dark Multiverse, the three Zeldas belonged to different worlds, each holding a Shadow Crystal Stone in their hands. And Dormammu, rescued by Zelda, prostrated himself in front of Zelda respectfully. A dark breath flew over. Zelda whispered, "The Shadow Crystal Stone is in your hands. Destroy Ganon's original power and I will give you freedom." Dormammu said tremblingly, "Yes, Your Excellency Princess. The Shadow Crystal Stone has powerful power, but this power will corrupt the soul of anyone who gets it." And Zelda purified the power of the Shadow Crystal Stone. Looking at the flying Ganon black gas, Dormammu's heart was filled with hatred. The three Shadow Crystal Stones in Zelda's hands shattered. A pure black light covered Dormammu's body. Dormammu roared, his body twisted, and opened his mouth to swallow the flying Ganon black gas. Dormammu screamed. Ganon's black energy caused great damage to his body. The magic flames on his body turned black and his face aged rapidly. He shouted, "Save me, Princess." Behind Zelda, two wings of light appeared and gently spread out. The power of the Shadow Crystal Stone on Dormammu's body immediately penetrated into his body and condensed into a sharp force. It directly pierced Ganon's original power. Swish. Ganon's original power dissipated with his last wail. At the end of the universe, a desolate continent. In the center of the continent is a pool of Ganon pollution that keeps rising. The real Demon King Ganon's body is brewing here. At the moment when Ganon's original power dissipated in Dormammu's belly, a strong light burst out from the Demon King Ganon's body. 3 arrows of light fell from the sky and deeply sealed the Demon King Ganon's body. Zelda Link. The Demon King's body screamed, and the holy power tore his body apart. Most of his accumulation of tens of billions of years hidden in this universe was destroyed immediately. In the center of the three realms, Zelda opened her eyes and whispered, "As expected, with my power alone, I can only seal you, but not destroy you. Wait until Link really stands in front of you." Ganon's body was seriously injured by Zelda, and sealed by 3 arrows of light. The road to defeating Ganon has advanced a lot. Zelda looked at the seriously injured Dormammu in front of her and said, "Leave, you are free. Don't covet the real world anymore." Yes. Dormammu's voice was very weak. He was seriously injured, and he couldn't recover even in 1,000 years. Zelda's last sentence was obviously redundant. Let's not talk about this mysterious and holy princess. Zant, who enslaved him, and Ganon, who led Zant, were defeated by the warriors on Earth. How could this Dormammu have the courage to invade the real world again? Zelda's figure silently dissipated. The light condensed in front of Link, and 4 smiling Zelda princesses appeared. Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 405 Master Sword Upgrade. Tony and the others were lying on the ground in all directions. Quicksilver sighed, "I'm so tired. We haven't slept for 3 days. Rogers was also exhausted. The real world has been restored. Where are we? The Shadow Kingdom was torn apart. The sky was clear blue, but the surrounding scene had not changed much. It was still an old broken castle. Loki, who had been slacking off for the entire battle, came to the edge of the castle. He saw that the original appearance of the earth had been restored under his feet, and the monsters in the gloomy jungle had disappeared. Pepper was still very energetic, and came to Loki's side. Suddenly, he shouted happily, "Great! We are in a flying castle." So, Loki raised his eyebrows. "This Hyrule royal city is preserved on Earth? Link is very brave, and he got a castle for nothing." Pepper shouted happily, "Really? I like it here. I want to move all my toys here." Natasha heard the conversation between Loki and Pepper, and her expression was a little tangled. "A castle floating above the earth? This will cause some chaos." Tony struggled to sit up, and he felt that every inch of his muscle was aching. "What are you afraid of? It's not just a castle. There was a dragon flying around for tourism before." Pepper may be interested in building a tourist attraction here, a one-day tour of Hyrule Royal City or something. Link stood on Fang's head. Ganon exploded a large number of order certificates before his death, and Link hurriedly absorbed them. After a careful count, Ganon actually exploded 34 order certificates for him. He was feeling the power surging in his body. The four princesses suddenly appeared in front of Link, which startled him. Because the four princesses had different appearances, but they all had the same expression, holy and ethereal. Link even mistakenly thought that they were resurrected by the goddess Hylia. But soon, the four princesses regained their expressions. Princess Washang smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Link." As for Princess Sky, she came over and grabbed one of Link's hands, held it tightly, and put it on her face. She said, "It's not easy. We defeated Ganon. Are you not injured?" Zelda was similar, and hugged Link gently. Only Twilight Princess hesitated. It was her first time meeting Link, but when she merged with the three princesses before, they had shared memories. Although it was only a short meeting, Twilight Princess had those beautiful memories and difficult times with Link. In terms of time, she and Link were still strangers who met for the first time. But in terms of memory and heart, Link has become the most important person in her heart. Fang rolled his eyes upwards. Another princess. How annoying. Someone is trying to snatch Link from her. Humph. Anyway, there is no other dragon that can wrap around Link's neck except me. Navi was also confused and muttered, "Another princess. Oh my god, how many Zelda princesses are there in this world?" The four princesses looked at each other in distress. Apart from anything else, how the four princesses get along with each other is a problem. And it will also cause confusion for Link. Fang flew down and wrapped around Link's neck like a scarf again. After seeing the new Zelda, everyone smiled a little strangely, and Tony whistled. Link and others also learned that the suspended Hyrule Royal City still remained on the earth. Loki was not afraid of trouble and gave Zelda an idea. "Just announce to the natives on Earth that the Kingdom of Hyrule has been established on Earth. Haven't you always wanted to rebuild your own kingdom? There are only a few of you long-eared Hylians, so you can consider immigration. I'm willing to be the first immigrant in your country. How about giving me the position of Prime Minister? I will be responsible for helping you to conduct state negotiations in other countries." Natasha said, "Have you ever seen a country with 4 top leaders?" Tony clapped his hands. "Let's build this into a tourist city. I will discuss with Link and build a grand theme park with the help of this ancient medieval royal city." Pepper shouted happily, "How about building a Chloro Forest theme park?" Midona flew over with the help of Fangaya and landed on Link's shoulder tiredly. He smiled and said, "There is another Zelda. How do you feel?" At this time, the Twilight Princess came over, stroked Midona's face, and closed her eyes. The body was emitting light. Midona felt that her body was filled with the power of light. Although it was completely opposite to her physical attributes, she did not reject or resist it at all. The injuries on her body were quickly healed. Link said to the Twilight Princess, "Thank you." The Twilight Princess shook her head quietly. "You don't need to say this to me. You saved me." Quicksilver appeared beside Vision in a flash. Vision asked, "Where have you been?" Quicksilver looked horrified. "I walked around the castle." "What did you see?" Scarlet Witch came over. "A big monster?" Quicksilver's eyes sparkled. "No, it's a huge treasure. Gold coins. Collections." He seemed to be able to see a sea of golden coins in his eyes. Natasha frowned and looked over. You didn't steal anything, did you? This is Zelda's property. Quicksilver shook his head hurriedly. No. As a result, a purple palm-sized rupee fell out of his pocket. Scarlet Witch covered her face. Embarrassed, the Twilight Princess smiled and said, "It's okay. You are the warriors who saved me and my country. If you can express my gratitude with some treasures, that would be great." Quicksilver expressed his gratitude and whispered to his sister, "This princess's wealth may be twice as much as Boss Stark's." Tony was shocked. What? At this time, the Master Sword in Link's hand suddenly began to buzz again. A blue light appeared, and a short-haired girl like a sapphire floated out of the Master Sword. The Master Sword Spirit, Faye. Everyone was shocked. Peppa opened his mouth wide. Wow. Faye ignored everyone and said to Link, "Master Link, the energy stored in the Master Sword is full. Do you want to upgrade it?" Rogers asked, "Is this another hero of yours?" Navi explained, "This is the soul of the Master Sword." Tony was shocked. A living weapon? Vision pointed at himself. Am I not one? The one in the form of the Mind Gem Scepter. Tony, but could you speak at that time? Would you call Link Master? Link was puzzled, but nodded. Then the Master Sword in his hand suddenly emitted a strange electronics sound, and suddenly a blue light penetrated his body. In an instant, the sword energy burst out. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Thank you Knight for the 600 starting coins reward. Chapter 406. The Power of the Exorcist Sword. The sword energy was so strong that everyone could not help but retreat. Even the fang on Link's body hurriedly took Midona away. It seemed that he did not dare to approach the Master Sword from the bottom of his heart. The sword broke free from Link's hand, floated in the air, and rotated slightly at an angle. The surface of the sword body flickered slightly, just like the reflection of sunlight on the water, bright but not dazzling. Despite this, it was filled with a sense of solemnity that no one should approach. Even Link himself felt the oppression from the Master Sword. It seemed that the Master Sword no longer submitted to him and wanted to break free and fly to the end of the sky. Bang! The sword energy became more and more agitated. Strange hurriedly set up a magic circle around him, trying to isolate the increasingly sharp sword intent from the Master Sword. But the magic circle he set up was like a layer of paper, easily pierced through. It almost did not cause any effect. Strange hurriedly said to Link, "Be careful, your sword seems to be a little out of control after the upgrade." Banner's face darkened. Indeed, the increase in strength is not always a good thing. Only controllable power belongs to oneself. Tony lowered his chin silently. What? Is this sword in a bad mood? Does it look down on Link and plans to run away? Midona lay on Year's head and said weakly, "This sword has always had a bad temper." Link was also wondering. At this time, Face said, "The Master Sword has been upgraded by 10%. The final power sublimation needs your personal guidance." Is it the same as the test in the Kilalo Forest? The first time Link obtained the Master Sword was in the Kelleg Forest, the hometown of Peppa. It was kept by a huge tree. This tree has a good relationship with Noi, and inserted in the stone slab in front of the tree. At that time, Link was too weak to pull out the sword. This sword has always been very demanding. Even Link, who has the best affinity with him, cannot easily surrender. It is precisely this kind of proud and unwilling to succumb to mortals that is qualified to seal Ganon, right? Zelda looked at the abnormality of the Master Sword, but was unmoved. She smiled at Link and said, "Only a true hero can pick up the Exorcist Sword." Link nodded. With his mind, he controlled the Master Sword to return to his hand. The Master Sword showed signs of resistance, rejecting Link's thoughts and emitting a stronger sword intent. But Link smiled at this. It was really a sword with a personality. Since the first time he saw the Master Sword, this sword has been constantly testing Link. Link whispered in his heart, "Don't be naughty. Come back and listen to my orders." But his eyes turned to Faye, who was standing aside. Faye looked at Link expressionlessly, and Link's eyes were clear and bright. Faye was silent for a moment, then whispered, "Yes, my lord Link." The Master Sword energy gathered and quietly fell into Link's hand. It was a huge contrast to his arrogant attitude just now. Link looked at Faye with a little amusement. Faye was the sword spirit of the Master Sword, and she was the real body of this sword. Rather than saying that the Master Sword was testing Link, it would be better to say that this sapphire-like shining sword spirit girl was testing Link. Faye's strange electronic voice sounded, and she gently put her hands together and saluted Link slightly. The awakened Master Sword has accepted the Master's first order and has now fully recognized the Master. The first stage of power is released. Nori was dissatisfied. What's going on? Only the first stage of power. Soon a strong sword sound interrupted Nori's words. The Master Sword was held in Link's hand, and the ground was shaken to the point that after images appeared. The Avengers and the Magic Temple mages once again hurriedly retreated. What the hell is going on again? Link opened his mouth in surprise. He held the Master Sword in his own hands and felt the most profound shock. If the aura of the Master Sword was only equivalent to a stream before, then now it is as turbulent as a river. Link swung the sword towards the sky, and a dazzling sword energy flew up to the sky. Link was stunned. The color of his sword energy was either pure white, pure gold, or pure black, depending on the use. But this time, the exploding sword energy that swept across the sky was actually stained with a faint red. Banner looked at the sky and murmured, "Will the sword light shoot to the moon?" Tony shrugged, "Don't be ridiculous. If the upgraded Master Sword has such a powerful force, then what's the point of me working so hard to develop Iron Man?" Jarvis suddenly said. "Mr. Tony, the sword energy released by Link just now cut a PA-4 satellite of our company into 2 pieces." Tony opened his mouth wide, and Banner's expression was full of fear when he looked at the Master Sword in Link's hand. The PA-34 satellite is a previous generation of the Veronica satellite. Due to the generation gap, its size is twice that of the Veronica, and Link casually swung out a sword energy, and it broke. Jarvis ruthlessly added, "Mr. Tony, according to the latest information from the sensors on the satellite exploded." Twilight Princess hurriedly said, "I apologize to you on behalf of Link, sir. I can provide you with compensation." She had just arrived and was not aware of the close relationship between Link and Tony. She only knew that Link destroyed someone else's star. Tony smiled stiffly and shook his head. "It's destroyed. It's Link who did it. What can I say?" But he couldn't help but walk forward, looking at the Master Sword with increased power, and said to Link, "But you must at least lend me the Master Sword to study it. I'm very curious about the structure and material inside." Faye sent out a cold electronic voice. "No. The Master Sword belongs only to Link. No one else can pick it up and use it." Tony spread his hands. "What's the matter?" The artifact called Mjolnir before was said to belong only to Thor. Isn't it still for Link and Vision to play with it one by one? Thor, who was far away in Asgard, yawned, muttered, "Cold? I'm getting weaker. Asgardians have a long lifespan and a poor sense of time. The earth was covered by the Shadow Kingdom, and even Heimdall didn't notice it. So Thor had no idea what happened on Earth in the past 3 days." After hearing what Tony said, Faye's tone became colder. "To pick up the Master Sword, you need at least 13 health points to ensure your own safety. Otherwise, your life will be in danger." Pepper hurriedly said to Tony, Yes. When the brave man pulled out the Master Sword, his vitality was almost sucked dry. Midona was shocked. "No wonder the last time I used the Master Sword, it made me weak for 3 days. Tony's mouth twitched. "Well, according to the Hylians, how many health points do I have? I'm very strong." Pepper shook his head regretfully. "At most only 2. What about Link?" 30. Navi said. "Tony, welcome to subscribe and vote to support genuine works." Chapter 407. Forbidden Love. Rumors exposed. The Master Sword has been greatly enhanced, and this is only the first stage. Link is looking forward to the subsequent explosion of the Exorcist Sword. After experiencing this disaster, everyone in the Magic Temple bid farewell to the Avengers. Strange said, "Now that Master Ancient One has passed away, the Earth still needs a protector. You are in the light, and we are in the dark. Goodbye." Roger shook hands with Strange solemnly. "Goodbye. If you need any help, just come to us." Tony also hugged Strange. "By the way, where is the Master Ancient One who floats around?" Strange's expression was a little embarrassed. Master Ancient One said he wanted to go to the edge of the universe for a trip. So he left." Zelda looked at the other 3 princesses. In fact, Zelda asked her to leave. When sealing Ganon, Zelda also used the power of the goddess to leave mark on his body. The Ancient One has super strong induction and can travel through the universe easily. So Zelda asked her to help investigate the sealed Ganon. They were on the suspended castle, but the magicians of the magic temple were never afraid of traffic problems. They all drew a circle in front of themselves, and a sparkle circle appeared. Strange said goodbye for the last time, and disappeared into the circle. Tony was a little envious. They have no idea what kind of traffic revolution will be brought about by making this time travel trick public. Natasha smiled and said, "Didn't you share your link element with the public? You know, the world has been troubled by the problem of energy shortage for half a century." Tony shrugged nonchalantly. Energy shortage can bring world peace. When everyone has an arc reactor, all countries will not feel unbearable for the cost of going to war. Who knows what kind of chaos will happen? This kind of resource can only be controlled by a few people. Quicksilver muttered, "Why does it sound annoying?" Tony turned his head. Huh. Quicksilver hurriedly turned his head away to whistle. Rogers was somewhat touched by Tony's words. "That's right. I don't want the super soldier potion to be popularized to people all over the world. Maybe it's selfish." At this time, several military planes flew over, and a black figure could be seen flying in the distance. Navi was startled. "Is it the World Defense Coordination Committee that is looking for trouble with us?" Rogers shook his head. "We have taken down their headquarters." Link, Zelda and others were startled. The black figure in the distance, Iron Patriot Rod, flew over quickly. Originally, because of the global conspiracy, Rod had been on alert and waiting for orders from his superiors. But the conspiracy came quickly and went quickly. Except for the Avengers and the magicians of the Magic Temple, the world was trapped in the Shadow Kingdom, and there was no memory of themselves turning into souls in the Shadow Kingdom. For people all over the world, the darkness came, a painful trance like a nightmare, and then suddenly woke up, and the darkness disappeared. Road was the same. He was wondering what was going on when he received a slightly frightening order. Investigate the huge floating royal city in the sky above the middle of the country. So he hurried to investigate. Except for the Avengers and the wizard, other Earthlings knew very little about the Shadow Kingdom, Zant, and Dormammu. So they instinctively linked the darkness, Shadow Kingdom, that quickly expanded and disappeared from Nepal with this huge floating royal city. Road was worried, because the Hyrule Royal City looked like a medieval European castle. He was worried that some terrible monsters, such as vampires, would emerge from it. He was ready to sacrifice for the country and the earth. Road had just turned into a soul in the Shadow Kingdom, and was frightened for a while. So his mind was a bit confused, full of some crazy thoughts. But under the clear image capture of the Iron Patriot, he saw a ruin of the floating royal city. There were several figures standing. Figures. Could they really be vampires who traveled through time and space? He zoomed in quickly, and then he saw. Tony smiled foolishly, and waved at him. Road opened his mouth, and uttered a curse word. Soon, the fighter pilot's questioning voice came. "Sir, are you giving any orders?" Road hurriedly said, "It's okay. You stay in the surrounding area first. I'll go down to check." Road also saw Link, Rogers and others. So he quickly landed in front of them, took off his mask, and said in shock, "Why are you here?" His eyes were mainly focused on Tony. "This floating castle, is it caused by some strange invention you made again?" Tony shrugged. "At present, I don't have a particularly mature research and development in the field of anti-gravity devices. It's not me. This is Zelda's castle." Road blinked and looked at Zelda. "Are you really a princess?" "At first, I heard that Zelda was a princess from another world, and Link was a knight from another world." Road thought Tony was joking. The four Zeldas said in unison, "Yes." This spectacular scene made Road confused again. He felt that he was still asleep. Otherwise, how could there be another golden-haired princess? Road said in a daze. "In other words, Zelda and Link are siblings of a forbidden love. This rumor, oh, is it a rumor?" Tony's face turned pale. "Oh my god. Carlson, why are you so careless? It's over." The four princesses screamed, and Link was also shocked, pointing at himself. "Me? Princess? Brother and sister?" Road gestured with his hands. "Or brother and sister or something. You see, you look a lot like the princess, with golden hair, long ears, and blue eyes." There are rumors that you and Princess Zelda are in love, and you escaped incognito to find true love, or something. The princesses couldn't help but smile bitterly, and Midona laughed while holding her stomach. Oh my god. Goddess Hylia. Haha, what a bloody story. Ha ha ha. The Sky Princess explained seriously. Link and I are childhood sweethearts, but we are not related by blood. Link's eyebrows stood up, and his face became terrible. Faye said coldly, Master, you have a strong murderous aura. Please tell Faye your target. Vision was so scared that he whimpered and hid behind the Scarlet Witch, looking timidly at Link, who was covered with gloomy clouds. Tony tiptoed away with a stiff face. Link asked in a deep voice, Rod, who told you? And, Tony, stop right there. Tony smiled awkwardly. I can't hold my pee. Go to the bathroom. Rod was frightened by Link's fury and his face turned pale. This was told to me by Agent Carlson of S.H.I.E.L.D. Tony slapped his face. It's over. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 408, Breaking Through SHIELD's Defense in 2 seconds. Why am I the one who got hurt? Why do I have to apologize? Tony asked Banner and Natasha with his hands spread out, his nose bruised. Natasha crossed her arms and tilted her head to look at him. So, shouldn't you be beaten for making up rumors about others? Banner smiled. Link was really gentle. Tony rubbed his nose. I know, he has 30 hearts. It's easy for him to beat a guy like me with 2 hearts to paralysis. Rogers flipped through the documents and put them down. You made Zelda and Link very uncomfortable. Zelda was embarrassed for a long time. By the way, what are you going to give to Link as an apology? At this time, the upgraded Damie brought over a piece of something covered with a red cloth. Tony said in a muffled voice, Link likes to eat, likes motorcycles, likes cold weapons, and likes to keep strange pets. So I prepared this for him. Damie, pull the cloth open. Banner and Rogers looked around curiously. They wanted to know what Tony was going to use to apologize. Ha! Tony yelled. The thing under the red cloth turned out to be a red motorcycle, shaped like a ball of fire, but not bulky. The outer shell shone with a bright and expensive luster. Although it was ostentatious, it matched Link well, if you looked closely. Tony smiled. This is a new motorcycle I developed. Roger's eyes lit up. Not bad. I like it very much. Tony clapped his hands. This is not an ordinary motorcycle. It's my amazing work. It's very sturdy. I added some vibranium left over from Ultron. The tires have been specially modified, with strong grip, and can even climb mountains. And there is a tracking device. It can fly, and is compatible with Link's power for acceleration, and the speed will reach the limit that humans cannot bear. So it is not suitable for you, Captain. Well, of course, the most important advantage of this car is that it is handsome. I asked Jarvis and Vision to calculate the aerodynamic angles to create the best streamlined shape. Great. Peppa Pig flew over stupidly, staring at the motorcycle in a daze. Is this a gift for the brave man? So cool. Tony nodded. Do you like it? How about you give this motorcycle a name? Peppa Pig shouted happily. Cherry. Everyone. Tony coughed. Not bad. It sounds nice. By the way, are Link and the others in the Sky King City now? This giant floating castle shocked the whole world. Due to the previous experience in Sokovia, people from all over the world speculated that the Sky Royal City would fall down. Zelda and Twilight Princess fiddled with it and found that the Sky Royal City could be controlled and moved. So they simply lived in the sky with Link. They were not Earthlings, and this medieval castle was more comfortable. By the way, they also moved the goddess Hylia up there, which made the goddess dissatisfied again. After all, she now lived on a statue and didn't like to be moved around. In the past few days, Link and others have been busy repairing the broken parts of the royal city. Not only the ruins, but also the curse and pollution caused by Ganon. Now the royal city has been restored to its original state. Peppa Pig called tenderly. The brave man is not here. I heard he went to SHIELD. Natasha was alert. Did something happen again? But the words were interrupted by Tony's strange laughter. Heh. Link must have gone to trouble Carlson. Let him talk too much. Link questioned him carefully before, and Tony honestly explained the matter. He told Carlson, and then Carlson spread it to others. Link was so angry that his teeth itched. Actually, Link didn't beat Tony himself. After all, the two of them had such a good relationship, and they had just finished a tough battle. Link roared, and Tony turned around and ran away in fear. As a result, he lost his balance and fell hard to the ground, with his face firmly pressed against the ground. SHIELD, a murderous atmosphere. Carlson, who had already taken on the position of director, was sitting restlessly in the office. He inserted his fingers into his hair, and his lips trembled as he murmured, "It's over, it's over." All the agents under his command were already alert. A capable agent hurried over, bringing a gust of wind. "Link is here. Director, let's evacuate quickly." The agents in front were on full alert. They received a report that a heat source was approaching them rapidly. But, where are the people? The agents looked ahead in horror, their eyes scanning around anxiously. A heat source was approaching rapidly, but they knew nothing about it, and could not even see it. What is that? A layer of ice is spreading. A layer of ice quickly formed on the ground, and then there was a rustling sound. Scratches appeared on the ice surface from far to near. The pupils of the agents shrank, and they hurriedly raised their guns. The data showed that Link could control the energy of ice. Instinctively, they quickly fired in the direction where the scratches were spreading. The muzzle of the gun snapped, white smoke came out, and a capture net with extremely strong elasticity and stickiness flew out. It joined with other deployed capture nets in the air and quickly pounced. Just when the agent seemed to be relieved, the capture net fell into the air and caught nothing. Alert. The agent whispered and quickly retreated. But soon his head became dizzy, and he fell to the ground. Link emerged from noise protection. He lowered his body, and suddenly turned into a shadow wolf. He turned into a black shadow and sneaked in. An agent had just opened the escape door for Carlson. Carlson saw the red dots of the shield defenders on the big screen, and they lost contact one after another. He hurriedly said, "Here it comes." How could it be so fast? It took less than 2 seconds. The agent shouted, "Who?" The agent at the door fell to the ground, and a black wolf with earrings walked in fiercely, showing its white teeth. He roared in a low voice, "Roar, run." The frightened agent pushed Carlson into the escape tunnel. Wait. As a result, the secret tunnel was too low, and Carlson hit his head on the door, covering his nose, and screaming in pain. Suddenly, Link's body flashed with electric sparks, and the agents in the room, who were aiming at him, were quickly stunned by the lightning transmitted through the air. Only Carlson was fine, and he hurried to the cave entrance. Link rushed over quickly, and pushed him to the ground. Carlson laughed dryly. I didn't mean to spread gossip about you." This. Link's eyes were cold, and Navi appeared and said viciously, "You will be punished." Carlson was scared. At this time, Nick came out of the secret passage with his back bent, and said in a muffled voice, "So, my organization was destroyed by Link alone." Carlson saw Link smiling and getting off him, and turned back into a human. He looked at Nick in surprise. "Director, why are you here?" This. Carlson was still used to calling Nick director. Nick said muffledly, "You don't really think Link is here to settle accounts with you? I asked him to come here, and I have something to ask Link, and by the way, let him help test the defense capabilities of S.H.I.E.L.D. Alas, it only takes 2 seconds to complete the decapitation of the highest commander. I can't stand it." Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 409 Venom discovered. Nick is a slow-moving person. Even after he stepped down as the director, he still has control over S.H.I.E.L.D. Even though Hill is already an employee of Stark Group, Nick often takes her around. When Thanos snapped his fingers, the two of them turned into ashes together. After Carlson sincerely apologized to Link, he looked at the unconscious agent outside the door and couldn't help but feel a little toothache. Link's strength is indisputable, but it's too embarrassing that S.H.I.E.L.D's defense was penetrated so easily by him. Especially since his predecessor saw it. It made Carlson feel even more uncomfortable. At the same time, he wondered what happened again. Nick waved his hand. "I'm afraid it's still serious. Don't worry about these colleagues who are sleeping. I'll take you to see something. Nick slapped the wall casually. Suddenly, a glass secret room was pushed up from the ground. Carlson was shocked. How come I didn't know there was such a place? Nick coughed and said, I forgot to tell you. After all, SHIELD has too many secrets. Carlson. But his eyes were soon attracted by the things in the glass chamber, and his face was a little scared. This is. He swallowed his saliva, and felt a little difficult to breathe. In the glass chamber, there was a twisted mass of asphalt-like things, crawling like an accelerating snail. Carlson said in a deep voice, cannon pollution? Nick nodded. It was found on a middle-aged woman in San Francisco with strange behavior. This kind of cannon pollution is very strange and aggressive. It is different from the cannon pollution in the information, so please Link take a look and see if it is a mutant. Link and Madonna, who had just appeared, were stunned. Navi exclaimed in surprise, so cute. Nick nodded. It's quite scary. Wait. What did you say? Cute. Navi said, there is no curse on this little guy's body. It's not Ganon pollution. He is a creature from your universe. Nick was stunned. Not Ganon pollution? There are such ugly creatures in our universe. Link nodded. His face relaxed. Yes, it is a creature. Venom. He received a call from Nick before, saying that there was a mutated Ganon pollution. Link was shocked. The current Ganon has been temporarily sealed by Zelda. How could there be residual Ganon pollution? Link immediately dropped the things at hand and rushed over to check. Unexpectedly, it was this kind of vicious alien symbiont. Navi explained to Nick and Carlson, who were looking confused. We were scared to death. We thought it was a big deal. It's just some venom. A small problem. Seeing the reactions of Link and his group, Nick breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, oh, it turned out to be a false alarm. It seems like it's not a big problem. Do you know what creature it is? Navi helped explain. Link knows. It's an alien symbiote. It's a bit like the parasites in your world. Nick and Carlson's smiles froze. Naveen continued. It can only possess human bodies, but ordinary people generally cannot bear it. Most of them will die and be devoured. The possessed people will be particularly hungry and violent. Link also knows that there should be more than one symbiote. It seems that there are many in San Francisco. Carlson was dumbfounded. You call this a small problem? Midona yawned. Compared with Ganon, it is of course a small problem. Carlson and Nick, it is true. Nick's mouth twitched. Only this one was found at the scene. Where are the rest? Link was certain in his heart. The plot of Venom has begun. Link returned to the Avengers base. The Avengers base is now cloudy every day. Because there is the Sky King city above. Everyone was present. Natasha had learned about the symbiote from Carlson and told everyone. Quicksilver rubbed his shoulders. What's going on? Trouble again? Tony was particularly interested in another thing. I heard that you wiped out SHIELD. I guess so. Link nodded. Quicksilver frowned and said, the black symbiote can move and eat people. It feels similar to the thing covering the moon. At this time, Loki came over with his weird smirk. Symbiote? I didn't expect such a dangerous creature to come to Earth. Rogers looked at him. Loki is indeed the one who knows the situation in the universe best among all people at present. After all, he is the second prince of Asgard and has seen everything in battle. So he asked, tell me what you know. Loki sat down and slowly poured himself a glass of red wine. He smiled and said, this creature is not easy to deal with. Its strength is not inferior to Hulk. It's okay all the time. If it comes in groups, then I don't know who will own the Earth. Vision called up the information provided by Jarvis. He came to Tony obediently and said, Boss Stark, we found out that the Life Foundation seems to have strange activities in San Francisco. Banner frowned. Life Foundation? I hate this organization. He had heard some rumors about this organization, including the scandal of conducting direct human experiments. Banner was extremely sensitive to this matter because of his own experience, and he instinctively felt that Drake, the boss of the Life Foundation, was very dangerous. Tony flipped through the specific report from Jarvis. It's really strange. Scarlet Witch said excitedly, should we go up and cause trouble for them? Roger shook his head. Without evidence, it's not convenient for us to do so. Although something happened to the Global Defense Coordination Committee, the reputation of the Avengers among the people is still full of controversy. If in such a sensitive matter, an accident is caused by intervention in a very famous life foundation, it will cause a very bad effect. Tony straightened his clothes and said, "It's such a simple matter. We can just go in and investigate tomorrow. Just think of it as a commercial cooperation between the Stark Group and the Statement Foundation. While Drake and I are chatting, you can sneak in to investigate." Then Tony looked at Loki. Loki smiled. "Well, I guess my illusion can help you." At this time, Pepper flew over and shouted, "Brave Master." Then he jumped into Link's arms. Link asked Navi, "What's wrong?" Pepper said vaguely, "The princess found a huge monster in the castle. It's a super large cyclops, very scary. He's resurrected. The most handsome one of Princess Zelda is fighting him." Link frowned and quickly flapped his wings and flew towards the Sky King City. How is it possible? The internal fighting in the King City was carefully checked. How could there be a monster? Vision, Tony, and Scarlet Witch also quickly flew into the sky. Chapter 410 Link, even I'm afraid of myself when I get angry. It took Link less than a second to rush into the huge shadow in the sky. Nori hurriedly asked Pepper in Link's arms, "Where are the princess and the others?" Pepper shouted, "In a side hall in the royal city." He pointed in the direction, but Link was too fast, and Pepper's mouth opened and couldn't close, and he screamed in the wind. Link saw a side hall from a distance, with strange blue lights flashing in the windows in the front. There were trembling waves under his feet, and the fierce cry made Link speed up again. Is it a cyclops? No. This kind of breath. There are some strange creatures in the Hyrule Royal City. There are fierce creatures, such as cyclops and centaurs to guard the treasure. The flying superheroes behind him also hurried over. Jarvis reported to Tony, "The source of giant power has been detected." When Link approached the side hall, a deep blue barrier rose up, like a blue rupee gem, and covered the periphery in a hexagonal shape like dragon scales. A buzzing sound came from the barrier, and it could be faintly felt that it was the sound of many court priests praying to the goddess Hylia. Oh. Pepper flew up in a hurry, and the small school bag on his back broke apart, dropping a bunch of toys and sweet snacks, as well as a golden metal cube. The metal cube quickly unfolded, folded in the air, splitting into pieces of golden and silver armor, and put them on Pepper's body. The round Yahaha Iron Man appeared. Pepper shouted and headed towards the blue barrier. The Yahaha version of Iron Man was enough to knock over the largest aircraft carrier in human history. Dang. Pepper hit the blue light barrier, and microwaves rippled on the surface. The huge momentum of Yahaha Iron Man was immediately decomposed and absorbed. What returned to Pepper was the vibration caused by the strong impact of Yahaha Iron Man, this potato-shaped thing. Woo woo woo. Pepper felt as if he was staying under a big clock, and Link was knocking hard outside. Link rubbed Pepper's head. In the side hall, the shouts of the Washan Princess and the Dusk Princess fighting with a huge figure could be vaguely heard. Pepper held his head with his two little hands in grievance, looking at Link pitifully. "My dear brave man, my head hurts. I can't break it open." At this moment, another yellow and red metal figure, at supersonic speed, crashed into the blue barrier in a shadow. It was also bounced away with a clang, and Tony's cry of pain came from Iron Man. "Wow, neck." Pepper's crying face smiled. "Haha, my neck doesn't hurt." Iron Man flew over muffledly. "Because you don't have a neck at all. Your body is directly connected to your head." Pepper was stunned, opened his mouth and didn't speak. He touched his head in horror and screamed, "I don't have a neck." Vision flew over quickly, and the Mind Stone swept over. She told Link with a serious look that the energy and defense structure used by this light shield are unprecedented in the human database. It is extremely strong and tough, and it is difficult to destroy. She looked at the huge figure flashing inside. "I'm afraid that only the people inside can defeat the giant monster, and this blue barrier can be touched." Link finally saw the huge monster inside. It was indeed a royal cyclops. In order to protect the sacred treasure, the Hyrule royal family captured the strongest royal monsters on the Hyrule continent to guard it. They are called the Royal Cyclops and the Royal Centaur. They are ancient species with terrible destructive power, and are now extinct. The so-called Cyclops and Centaur now are not at the same level as the Royal Cyclops and Royal Centaur. The latter is enough to take the former as dinner. The latter is a predator, and the former is a prey. In the late plot of Iron Man 3, Link and All fought side by side against a similar race, and they are far less powerful than the royal monsters. After thousands of years of imprisonment, the royal monsters have accumulated anger and resentment, making their strength even more powerful. This blue light shield seems to be the device used by the Kingdom of Hyrule in ancient times to restrict the two royal monsters. The princesses who were accidentally trapped inside must be in great danger. Link pulled out the Master Sword behind him. Midona hurriedly said to the Avengers who came over, "Get away." Everyone retreated. They knew very well how powerful Link's Master Sword was at this moment. Tony's giant satellite costing tens of billions can testify to this. Faye's voice came from the Master Sword. "Obey the Master's orders." The sword rang. The stone slab where Link stood shattered in an instant, and the dissipated sword energy cut the surrounding air. Vision, Iron Man and others hurriedly shouted, "Get away." They still underestimated Link's danger. The sword energy that Link burst out at this moment. They couldn't stay close at all. Swish. Raise your hand and stab with the sword. The sword tip burst out with a sharp sword light. The sword light was white, but it contained a touch of violent red sword energy. It was the breakthrough brought by the first stage of the Master Sword awakening. Snap. The sword light poked on the blue barrier. With a click, the blue barrier shattered like a burst of glass. Boom. It directly caused the entire Sky King city to tremble. Bang. A corner of the Sky King city was strongly shaken, cracked, and separated from the main body. It fell down and smashed the Avengers base on the ground. Oh damn. Tony hurriedly pulled Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Falcon, flew under the fallen large building, and tried to hold it up. Rogers, Natasha and others who had just boarded the plane looked at the huge stone falling from the Sky King city with horror. Scarlet Witch tried hard to hold up the huge stone, which was originally part of the Castle King city. She cried out, "What happened? Why is Link so strong now?" Vision said angrily, "Is it really okay for Link to live here? With his current strength, if he stomps his feet and shakes off a huge rock, the Avengers base will be gone." Tony shouted, "Link, don't worry about us, go save Zelda." Midona and Peppa's eyes were full of stars, and they shouted in unison with Navi, "How cool." Link laughed dryly. In fact, he was also shocked. Because of the recent hard battles, he just overestimated the defense of the blue barrier, and underestimated his own strength after the upgrade of the Master Sword. The consequences of such a big commotion were unexpected to him. But now is not the time to be complacent. A streak of ice appeared on the road ahead, and Link slid down. He broke into the side hall. The huge figure of the royal giant was aroused. The four princesses were chased all over the hall, and had no ability to fight back. When they heard Link's voice, they were overjoyed and rushed over in surprise. Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support the original work. Chapter 411 Treasure Chest. Link passed by the four princesses without saying anything. He quickly raised his sword, and stabbed the Cyclops. The Master Sword burst into brilliant light, and the sound of the sword became more and more piercing. The Royal Cyclops was different from the giants Link had seen before. The skin of his body showed a metallic texture. The giants he had fought were all bloated and fat. The Royal Giant was different. His muscles were full and powerful, especially when his body was so huge. The muscle texture on the surface of his skin was clearly visible, just like flowing magma, or like a blue whale undulating on the seabed, full of explosive power. Just staying in front of him, you can feel a terrible pressure. Although the appearance of the Royal Cyclops was very different from the aesthetics of normal humans, his face was ugly. In addition, after years of imprisonment, he was full of gloomy resentment. But even so, there was still a strange noble aura on his body, which separated himself from other creatures. No wonder the ancient Hillidir royal family would add the prefix royal to this ancient Cyclops. As for Navi and Midona, they stayed to protect the four princesses. Navi shouted, "You're alright." The four princesses were still in shock and a little embarrassed. Zelda smoothed her messy hair and said breathlessly, "We were looking for treasure in the royal city, and we opened a great treasure chest. Suddenly, we were sealed inside." The Sky Princess was still in shock. It was so scary. Soon, the big monster came out from the circular pattern under the treasure chest. we couldn't beat it, and it kept chasing us. Midona asked with a little surprise, treasure hunting? Is it that serious? In the royal city, where you grew up? Are you so bored? The Twilight Princess was a little embarrassed. No. Well, I heard them say they wanted to go around the royal city and see how it was different from the royal city in their world. She was mainly referring to Zelda and the Sky Princess. The Sky Princess was not as curious. Although I also grew up in this royal city, there are many places I haven't seen. So I took them everywhere, and the result was, Midona opened her mouth in surprise. You have such a dangerous thing in your house, and you, the princess, didn't know it? Twilight Princess smiled awkwardly. I didn't know. As soon as Link came over, they were completely safe, and everyone was very relaxed. At this time, there was a sound of something hitting the ground behind them, so they looked back. They were all stunned at the same time. Link kicked the Royal Cyclops on the forehead. Due to the huge difference in body proportions, it was like a young mouse kicking Captain America's forehead. But then, the Royal Cyclops' reaction was huge. His eyes were dull for a moment, and his huge face made every detail of his emotions revealed. The four princesses clearly saw that after the Royal Cyclops was kicked by Link, he went from stunned to dull, then from dull to painful, and then from painful to distorted, so that his facial features were squeezed together in pain and wrinkled. Then his body fell backwards violently, as if he was hit by a car. The back of his head hit the ground and a big hole was created. The broken stones were ejected to the feet of Peppa. The four princesses all cried out in surprise. The Sky Princess and Zelda couldn't help but say in unison, so powerful. Midona spread her hands and shook her head and said, why is everyone acting like this now? Navi said, because no one knows how strong Link is now. The Royal Cyclops covered his forehead and screamed, it hurts. He felt like his skull was broken. He had been suppressed by the royal family of Hyrule for thousands of years, and revived with the suffocating resentment of imprisonment. The four Hylian girls looked at him stupidly. Although he didn't recognize any of them, the iconic blonde hair of the four princesses and the unique temperament of the royal family of Hyrule made him find a place to release his anger. He wanted to eat these four girls. Two of the girls with a calmer temperament attacked him with a toothpick-like sword. In the end, they poked him twice in the knees in a serious manner, but he didn't get hurt. The girl was stunned, and she turned around and ran away, calling for help. After a few rounds of chasing, a blonde girl rushed over, daring to save the beauty. When the royal giant thought that there was another Hylian for lunch, the girl jumped up and kicked him. Link landed on the royal giant's chest, and walked towards his face. The royal giant roared and slapped him. The huge force from his palm was enough to instantly disintegrate the Avengers base. Link walked towards him slowly with a fierce look on his face, without dodging or evading. He raised his sword to the sky. The sword energy immediately pierced the royal giant's palm, and green blood flowed out. The royal giant was stunned again. This small weapon could actually hurt him! Exclamation mark. He was so surprised that he forgot to throw Link off his body. Link came to him. Seeing this beautiful girl with a burst of anger in her eyes, the royal giant immediately felt something was wrong. Bang! Link kicked the royal giant hard on the chin. Crack! The royal cyclops' jaw hurt so much that he was horrified to find that he couldn't close his mouth. His jaw was dislocated and cracked into several parts. Fangy watched Link bully others again, waving his claws excitedly and shouting yeah yeah. The royal cyclops wanted to push Link away and stood up in a hurry, but Link stomped his feet hard and lightning flashed all over his body. The huge body was bright white and the royal cyclops was twitching all over. Link jumped on his face, changed to the Dragon Soul Greatsword, and extended to the Greatsword mode of 30 meters and smashed it down hard on the royal cyclops' face. Dare to chase the princess? You're looking for death. Pa. 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 Sword after sword hit the Cyclops' face hard. Tony, Vision and others who came with other Avengers put down the stone steadily. They were ready for a tough battle. But after being on the spot, they found that Link jumped on the enemy's face and smashed it with the sword, and the enemy had almost no ability to fight back. Rogers put his hands on his waist and panted. I was shocked. It turned out to be just a Cyclops. Princess Washang shook her head in confusion. It's different. This guy almost ate me. He is at least 100 times more powerful than an ordinary Cyclops. Well, of course. Before, Princess Washang was completely unable to beat the royal giant. She couldn't cause any damage. She was almost scared to death when he chased her. She had the most experience with the terrible fighting power of the royal giant. Despite this, when she saw Link beat the royal giant so easily and naturally, Princess Washang also had the same idea as Rogers. This big guy's not that strong. Vision used the Mind Stone to analyze the strength of the royal giant. His face suddenly stiffened, and he took 2 steps back. What kind of monster is this? With a squeak, there was a sound of leaking air. The royal giant was frightened by Link's beating, and his body quickly shrank and turned into a pool of ashes. A golden treasure chest fell from the sky, as if it was alive, and the lid popped open. There were colorful flashes inside. Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 412 Bow of Light. Midona's eyes lit up. What? You actually found the treasure? Don't move. Let me do it. Let me open the treasure chest. Link made a whatever you want gesture. On the wall of this side hall, a circle of blue words began to appear, and are all like thousands of swords and spears hitting each other. This is the ancient text when the kingdom of Hyrule was founded. Twilight Princess walked up, looked up at the characters, frowned slightly and identified them one by one. Because the time was too long, Twilight Princess could only vaguely recognize a few simple characters, so she looked at Zelda. Although Zelda's mind was full of miscellaneous things, she had more than 10 methods of making medicine about frogs. But the glowing ancient characters on the wall were too old, and by her time, there were only a few documents left. She interpreted it in a stammering way. Monster's Guard, the treasure of courage. Then the Sky Princess read out fluently. Only after the warriors of the future generations have gone through trials can they obtain the weapons that protect Hyrule. The Sky Princess is the one with the earliest timeline in all the Zelda worlds. She has lived in the sky since she was a child and learned such words. Midona looked at the treasure chest with shining eyes. Not to mention the treasure inside, just this treasure chest seemed very valuable. She rubbed her hands foolishly and prepared to open the treasure chest. Yea grinned evilly and rushed over quickly with dragon claws extended. Suddenly raised it. Wow, what are you doing? Midona shouted and pulled Yea's head angrily. Then Yea looked at the things in the treasure chest blankly and exclaimed wow. Midona was stunned and saw that the treasure chest was shining, and the light golden light release made her and Yea's faces dyed golden. Princess Washang's pupils shrank, that is. The 4 princesses hurried over. Link's heart was touched. He subconsciously raised his hand and felt a warm feeling in his palm. In the treasure chest, a light bloomed like a flying bird, and a beautiful golden longbow fell into Link's hand. Faye was frightened and flew out in a hurry. It is detected that my Lord Link has encountered other sacred weapons. Zelda was full of surprise. It is the Bow of Light. That's right, it is the strongest bow in Hyrule continent, which can defeat Ganon's final form, the Bow of Light. Midona glared at Yea who was hugged by her. Ah, I'm so envious. You actually opened such a good thing. Yea swayed left and right in Midona's arms, very happy. Link was also shocked. This bow and arrow gave him a great shock at the beginning. Without the help of the Bow of Light and Zelda, he could only defeat Ganon, but could not seal him. And he has indeed been lacking an effective bow. So far, he had broken 30 special bows developed by Tony, as well as 5 of Hawke's collections, which made Barton feel distressed. However, for the sake of face, he could only say coolly, you rely too much on equipment. You can't reach the highest level of archery this way. But just as he was about to clench his fist, he suddenly found that his hand was empty, as if the Bow of Light in front of him was just an illusory image. Although the Bow of Light reacted to Link quite friendly, this kind of artifact obviously has its own will. It seems unwilling to accept Link. Then he felt a hostile gaze. Turning around, he saw Faye staring at him expressionlessly. To say that she was expressionless. Faye's cheeks bulged. Navi helped Link and asked, Faye, what's wrong with you? Faye shook her head. Master Link has another artifact. Although her voice was also very calm, Link and Navi looked at each other in confusion. Because they both heard that Faye seemed to have a lot of resentment. Navi whispered to Link, from what you said, it sounds like you have another woman outside. Even though her voice was very low, Faye had some of Link's senses, so she heard it. No, Faye is the sword spirit of Master Link, and she obeys Master Link's orders. Master Link has obtained a new artifact, and Faye thinks it will help Master Link. The tone was very calm, but Link smiled in confusion. It seems that the Master Sword has a rejection of the Bow of Light. The four princesses came over, and the Bow of Light suddenly emitted a brighter light. It escaped from Link's grasp. It fluttered and hid in the arms of the Twilight Princess like a flying bird. Navi was startled. Princess. The Twilight Princess took it in her hand in surprise, and looked at Link in surprise. She didn't quite understand what happened. Princess Washang said, "It seems that not only Faye rejects the Bow of Light, but the Bow of Light also rejects Faye." Twilight Princess wanted to call the Bow of Light to Link. "No, it will be more helpful for you to have it. This is also what you got by defeating the royal giant." Link saw it, but shook his head. Navi said, "Link asked you to take it. The Bow of Light is indeed more suitable for Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess can condense the Arrow of Light to kill the evil force. In the world line of the game of Twilight Princess, she once used the power of the Arrow of Light to shoot down Ganon. It created an opportunity for Link to fight Ganon one-on-one. Then she turned to look at Faye, watching Faye's puffy face, quietly relaxing. Link smiled and touched Faye's head, but because he couldn't hold it, he just touched it vaguely. Faye said expressionlessly in her electronic voice, "Master Link." She was about to say something. Suddenly she disappeared, and went back into the Master Sword. She seemed a little shy. Midona came to Link's shoulder, and rubbed the face of Yaya in her arms. Curiously looking at Twilight Princess, try to use this Bow of Light. She had also heard from Zelda how Link defeated Ganon with a Bow of Light. She had always been curious about this bow. Twilight Princess held the Bow of Light tightly, and pulled it to the sky. The bowstring of the Bow of Light was pulled, a ray of light flashed out, and an arrow of light shot out, swish, at the edge of the universe. The sealed Ganon's body actually trembled in fear. Tony in the distance was stunned, because Jarvis' voice came again in his Iron Man. "Mr. Tony, another satellite of yours was shot and exploded by a bow that seemed to be shot by Zelda." Tony scratched his head fiercely. "Why is it me again?" Twilight Princess's aura also became fierce. Her expression became extremely sacred, as if the goddess Hylia was possessed. In the hands of Twilight Princess, the Bow of Light exploded with power far beyond expectations. Link now has another super strong fighting force. The Twilight Princess looked at the Bow of Light in her hand, and said to herself, "I'll use you to assist Link." Welcome to vote and subscribe to support the original work. Chapter 413 Ant-Man appears. The next day, after a busy night, Link, Tony, Banner and Quicksilver came to San Francisco. He pretended to negotiate with Dr. Drake, and then secretly investigated. Quicksilver was not well known and the public was not familiar with him. Link had a strong stealth ability, and he turned into a child. No one could recognize him. Tony looked down at the cute little Link from time to time. For some reason, he kept a distance from Banner. Banner asked, "What's wrong with you?" "I'm not angry," Tony said seriously. "We should not get too close. Otherwise, others will think we are a family of three." Banner's face turned green all of a sudden. "I'm going to be angry." Quicksilver smiled and said to Link, "Do you want me to carry you?" Link shook his head. "This is too embarrassing." Tony lowered his head and rubbed Link's hair hard. "This kid, I'm not surprised if he turns into a girl one day." This morning, when the shrunken Link appeared in front of the Avengers, it caused a sensation. They had heard from Banner and Natasha that Link would become smaller, but they did not expect that the shrunken Link would be so cute when they saw it with their own eyes. Pepper's maternal love overflowed, and she kept clinging to Link. Tony was jealous, thinking that he was not a child anymore, and it was time for him to have a child. When the transformation happened, Rogers was the most horrified. After all, Link had the same experience as him, sleeping for 100 years, but his appearance remained unchanged. So he was also worried that he would become a child and have his hair rubbed by Tony with a grin. When she heard Roger's childish guess, the good-tempered Natasha couldn't help rolling her eyes. Dr. Drake is a young and handsome young man with great potential. Among the entrepreneurs in the world, his reputation is second only to Tony. With a gentle smile, He shook hands with Tony and Banner enthusiastically. He said, "Welcome to you. It is our honor to cooperate with the Stark Group. We believe that with our efforts, the brilliance of science and humanities will lead the Earth to a better place." It must be said that, if you don't know the things behind Dr. Drake, this guy really feels like a future young leader. Tony smiled and said, "I'm particularly interested in your scientific research results. After all, it is always boring to study machinery." He greeted Drake skillfully. Then he kept complaining in his heart, "This young man with a pink head and a pink face is just like this. The media actually compares me with him. It's unreasonable." Banner was a little stiff because he noticed that Drake's eyes were secretly looking at him, and his eyes were very burning. This made Banner feel a little uncomfortable. Drake smiled and said, "Drive Banner. When I was a student, I studied your academic achievements day and night. It's great to meet you, a genius in biological science. Let's go over and talk. And by the way, this kid is..." Tony smiled and said, "This is my nephew, Steve Stark. You are his idol." Link looked at Tony in surprise. "What kind of name is this?" He looked at Link. He squatted down kindly, looking like a big boy teacher, and said with a smile, "Steve." "Yes," a little girl with a firm look in her eyes. "Link." "Everyone." Tony hurriedly pulled Link behind him, his face a little stiff because he was afraid that Link would get angry and tear Drake apart. Tony explained casually, "My nephew is a born mute. He can't speak." Drake looked at Link behind Tony, staring at him, and didn't know why he felt a little flustered. He forced a smile and said to Tony, "Mute. The five senses and touch are the tools God has given us to observe and interpret everything. In fact, our foundation has been studying to solve these congenital regrets. We have made some achievements in the area of muteness, no, the loss of language ability, and maybe it can help you." Tony pretended to be particularly grateful. "Really? If Steve can regain his language ability, I will be grateful to you for the rest of my life. Every time I see this child being silent, I feel heartbroken." Banner and Quicksilver suppressed their laughter and secretly looked at Link with a tense face. "Link." He poked Tony's leg with his finger and quietly released a lightning bolt, which made Tony shiver. "Let my bodyguard take Steve on a casual tour. Let's talk business." Tony smiled. Drake smiled and said, "Okay, I'll ask my people to accompany you." "That, Mr. Stark, how do you want to cooperate with our foundation?" Drake winked and told his subordinates to keep a close eye on Link and Quicksilver. He always felt that Quicksilver's eyes were cunning, and Tony suddenly cooperated with him and came over, which made Drake alert, fearing that his affairs would be exposed. Being stared at by such a freak with a strong sense of justice. Banner had been smiling beside him, but he was stunned when he heard what Tony said next. Tony pointed at Banner with a smile. "You know he has the genetic ability to become bigger and stronger. We may be able to use Hulk's blood to help purify the physique and genes of all mankind." "I see." Drake's eyes suddenly became serious. He was particularly interested in the topic of human upgrade. From the time they met until now, he has looked at Banner for even longer than Tony. As soon as Tony said this, Drake's heart was moved. All of a sudden, even the previous vigilance against Tony and others disappeared. At this time, a sneaky person invaded the Avengers base. After Stark became smaller, he jumped off the plane. Riding on the ant, he flew towards the base below. When he saw that it was the sky above the Avengers base, he was shocked. "We are going to steal the Avengers stuff?" Dr. Hank hurriedly shouted, "Evacuate." Hope also hurriedly said, "Scott, leave quickly, otherwise your life will be in danger." But Scott thought that, since he was here, he couldn't not bring something back. So the driver ant continued to fly down. He said to the communication device, "It's okay, my body is in a shrunk state, it's hard for them to detect me." And the frowning new Avengers who were being tossed around by Rogers in the lobby of the base. Hearing the alarm from Jarvis, Natasha knocked on the pointer in her hand and said, "Is there an intruder?" Rogers, who had been gloomy and couldn't find a reasonable way to train the new Avengers, suddenly thought of an idea and smiled. "Let's go. I'll take you to practice." Scott sneaked into the base with confidence. He didn't notice that a large number of superheroes had already set their sights on him. Ant-Man encountered a severe test on his first mission. Welcome to subscribe and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 414 to Cases of Cannibalism. Ant-Man Scott quietly landed on the grass outside the Avengers base. His figure sank into the neatly trimmed grass spikes. Hope and Hank's anxious voices still came from the communicator. Come back. Hank's voice was a little dry. Don't get caught. I don't want the Avengers to get my suit. Hope glared at her stubborn father. Scott's life is in danger. Scott called the ants to run into the base. His tone was very relaxed. I heard that Iron Man, Banner and the Life Foundation went to discuss business cooperation today. Link alone may pose a danger to me, but he is just a little kid. When it comes to stealing, I'm the best in the world. But then, Scott was frustrated by his inexplicable pride. Muttered, of course this is not important. Who will give me a stable and high-paying job? I have the world's cutest little girl to raise. He quickly approached the Avengers. There was no alarm, and in front of him were the grass leaves and roots that were quickly pushed back. The black ants were diligently holding him up and running wildly on 6 legs. He carefully observed his surroundings. Well, I don't need to worry at the moment. There is no one. Puff. His eyes went dark. He saw that he was covered by a green soft thing. Looking left and right, the voice became urgent. I'm pressed by something. Hank said, hurry up and find a way to escape. Mission cancelled. Hope approached the communicator and shouted anxiously, get bigger. Spread the thing covering you. Scott's voice came from the receiver, sharp and trembling. What the hell is this? Hope and Hank were nervous and looked at each other. There were too many strange people in the Avengers, and they had no idea what Sturk had encountered. Scott saw the light restored in front of him, and the vision revealed made him see a big leaf. It was a chubby creature like a doll, wearing a leaf mask on its head, staring at him with a pair of bright eyes, curiously. Pepper cried tenderly, I caught him. A big ant. A little man who is smaller than a big ant. A clear man's voice came from afar. Good job, Pepper. This voice was too familiar to them. They often heard it on TV from a sturdy man in a blue tights. Captain America. And the one who caught Scott was. Scott lost his voice and said, Link's bully pet Pepper. Huh. Scott's chirping voice scared Pepper. His antennae stood up, and Dowdow's eyes were full of confusion. Bully? For a while, public opinion was full of misleading news that discredited the Avengers. Especially Link, who was in the spotlight, and as Link's cute partner, Pepper's black history was also dug up. A sack-like fat boy with a 5-layer chin was pulled in front of the media camera by his long-necked mother and cried how they were beaten by the vicious green monster at that time. The fat boy in the sack swore with confidence that Pepper suddenly turned into the Hulk and beat my ass. His mother nodded quickly and hypocritically, and there was a poor little dog. As for the most innocent Clark, he was ignored by the careless mother and son. Scott hurriedly pressed the red button at the base of his thumb, and his body expanded rapidly. Pepper went from lying on the lawn looking down at Scott to looking up at him. Wow, it's getting bigger. Who are you? As soon as Stuck grew bigger, he saw the Avengers led by Natasha and Rogers running towards him. Captain America, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Falcon. Scott counted happily. This is the first time I've seen them in person. Hope rubbed his forehead, leaned down and said, "They're real people, will deal with you." Quickly shrink and run away. Scott shrank again and fell down. A black ant just flew by. He flew directly into the base, saying, "A thief never leaves empty-handed." Bah. My mission will not fail. Hank slapped himself in the face and muttered, "I can already foresee what's going to happen next." Scott controlled the black ant and easily dodged the shield thrown by Captain America, then grew bigger, kicked Falcon away, and did not forget to say, "Sorry, actually you are my admirer." Captain America is too. Soon Natasha swept him down with a scissor kick. Scott quickly became smaller again, and flew out from between Natasha's legs. Scott jumped into the lawn, hid it, and quickly approached the base. By the way, he smiled at the communicator. It's a pity that there is no video recorder, otherwise I must record such a cool scene. HMM. He suddenly found himself flying up, his body and arms stretched out involuntarily, and the shape was like Jesus nailed to an invisible cross. Hope shook his head. It's over. This is the power of the Scarlet Witch. Scott looked around his body in surprise. It was a deep red power. Then he heard Rogers yell, Yeah, stop. Scott turned his head and saw a red dragon coming out from nowhere. It tilted its head to look at Scott, as if it wanted to taste him, and then it opened its mouth and bit Steck in its mouth. Oh my god. Steck yelled. Hank said anxiously, what happened again? Steck whispered, I was eaten by a dragon. Father and daughter. Midona flew over in fear. Don't eat anything. You'll get a stomachache. She grabbed Yaya's cheek and shook it hard. Link and Quicksilver were followed by Drake's men. They were visiting the open area of the Life Foundation. They were watching closely, but Link was just a child now, so it didn't matter. So the two men kept their eyes on Quicksilver. They were monitoring Quicksilver and didn't notice that someone had appeared behind them unknowingly. Loki's two hands touched the back of their heads. The two men lost their focus and fell into Loki's illusion. Loki smiled and said, detectives, go investigate the truth. Link nodded and jumped on Quicksilver's shoulder. He turned on teleportation. The speed was so fast that the camera could only detect a shadow. They came to the laboratory. The laboratory was in a mess, with several compartments. Behind the explosion-proof glass were the dying experimenters. The glass of one of the observation rooms was broken, and there was no one inside. What a bastard. Quicksilver cursed in his own country's language. He looked at Link and said, let's rescue them. At this moment, a symbiote hidden in the corner quickly crawled to Link's ankle. Welcome to subscribe and vote to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 415, Electric Roast Symbiote. What a delicious body. The symbiote has no eyes or nose, but its senses are quite sensitive. From a distance, it can smell the breath of life coming from Link. It makes the symbiote spasm with excitement. What a great host. It quietly approaches, silently, and quickly climbs up along Link's ankles. Its body turns into small parts, trying to pierce Link's body and cover his internal organs. What is this? Quicksilver just turned his head and saw the symbiote wrapped around Link. It teleported and rushed over, trying to reach out and tear the symbiote apart. The symbiote was quite surprised because Quicksilver was unusually fast. But he was not panicked because he had already stuck to Link's skin. This beautiful little boy was already in his pocket. Quicksilver's hand was suddenly grabbed by Link's tender little hand, and he couldn't move after being pinched. Quicksilver resumed the speed of the flow in surprise, staring at Link in confusion. Quicksilver knew that Link had the ability to temporarily stop time, but he didn't know why Link wanted to stop him. This wasted a lot of time, and the symbiote had already covered Link's thigh. Navi suddenly appeared and said, you can't touch the symbiote, otherwise it will be parasitized by this guy. Quicksilver said anxiously, wouldn't it be worse to let Link parasitize it? Navi suddenly giggled, do you think the symbiote can parasitize Link? Huh. The symbiote also had a question mark in his mind, because he found that a pale white light burst out from the inside out of Link's body surface. It directly blocked the penetration of the symbiote. He tried his best, but couldn't penetrate Link's skin. Then, the symbiote found that his body was getting stiffer and stiffer. Soon it became cold, hard and frozen. Link's ice maker directly froze the symbiote. Faye also emerged from Link's body, and her psychedelic voice was very cold. Master Link has been invaded by malicious intent. Do you want to kill him? Quicksilver shrugged. Okay, I know I've been worrying for nothing. The symbiote felt a strong murderous aura and hurriedly broke through the ice on the surface. The murderous aura came from Link, and the symbiote then discovered that this unusually beautiful body actually hid an extremely terrifying power. So the symbiote, like a pool of flowing mercury, quickly broke away. As a second choice, he climbed towards Quicksilver's legs. Quicksilver was furious. Wouldn't it be embarrassing for me to be touched by you? He teleported away directly, and the symbiote missed. When the symbiote was about to take the next step, a cover made of ice suddenly covered him. Want to catch me? No way. The symbiote slammed into the ice cover fiercely, but Link didn't give him a chance and released electricity from his fingertips. Sizzle. The symbiote started to smoke. Quicksilver came over curiously and said, this guy seems to be cooked. Then his face suddenly changed, and he looked at Link fearfully, and took 2 steps back. You don't want to eat him, do you? Link was speechless. What's going on? My image in the eyes of others has become like this? I don't stuff everything into my mouth. Navi said sullenly. Quicksilver, you are courting death. Pa. Link laughed dryly, and electric current came out from under his feet. He beat Quicksilver directly to the ground and trembled. His carefully combed hair exploded and smoked. Navi nodded. I like your new hairstyle. Forgive me, Link. I was wrong. Quicksilver hurriedly apologized to Link like a little brother. Little Link was angry and made a bun face, which looked very cute. Just don't be so fierce. Quicksilver added. Then, what should we do with this symbiote? Navi said, Tony wants to use him for experiments. We can just take him back. The symbiote was angry. Use me for experiments? No way. I want to be free. He hit the shield again, but another bolt of lightning struck him, crackling and sparking. Link squatted down quietly, looking at the symbiote in the ice shield with his clear big eyes. Navi, submit or not? The symbiote struggled for freedom again. Zilila, Navi, submit or not? Zilila, Navi, submit or not? Zilila, Navi, submit or not? Zilila, Navi. Oh, he seems to be dead. Link shook his head. He used electricity very accurately. This symbiote must be reappearing. Zilila, the symbiote spasmed and became active again. It won't even let go of the dead. But he was scared of Link's electricity and didn't dare to run anywhere else. He stayed in the center of the ice shield, curled up into a ball. Navi, I feel like he doesn't dare to go online anymore and doesn't dare to move anymore. So Link directly sealed the symbiote in a hollow ice ball. He and Quicksilver checked the situation in the laboratory. During this time, 2 inspectors came in and were knocked down by Quicksilver with 1 punch. While Tony and Drake were chatting, Jarvis hacked into the network of the Life Foundation. The monitoring device kept the picture unchanged. Link and Quicksilver were calm in the laboratory. Jarvis helped open the laboratory compartment, and all the human experimenters inside were dead. Quicksilver pursed his lips tightly, because the deaths of these dead were too ugly. Anyone with a little compassion would be heartbroken. But Link found something wrong. Navi flew left and right. Something's wrong. Where are the symbiotes and their bodies? Link squatted down and checked the body of the deceased. Although his expression was terrified and his facial features were distorted to the limit of human beings, he was also covered in blood. But his appearance remained basically intact, and there was no part that was madly devoured by the symbiote. Where did all the symbiotes in these laboratories go? Drake, who was negotiating with Tony and Banner, never left Banner's body with his eyes, as if he was coveting a stunning beauty. In his mind, another low and hoarse voice came. What a delicious body, I like it. Drake's expression was stunned, and he said angrily in his heart, no, you are my partner. I will not allow you to leave my body. The symbiote in his body chattered and laughed. I like to partner with you. As for this Banner, what a good body. I should let my favorite subordinates parasitize him. At this time, little Link and Quicksilver came over, followed by 2 confused men of Drake. As for Loki, he left first with the ice hockey. Little Link held Tony's hand and blinked. Tony understood, rubbed little Link's head affectionately, and said with a smile, okay, Dr. Drake and I have almost talked it over. It's time to go. Almost talked it over? Drake frowned. He had been looking forward to conducting biological research on the Hulk with Stark. But from beginning to end, Tony kept talking about other things and refused to get to the point. Banner was almost drowsy on the side. This made Drake very dissatisfied. Tony said he was leaving. Drake was anxious. Mr. Stark. Tony stood up and said with a smile, okay, I know you want to develop cosmetics that make the skin green, but this skin color is obviously not suitable for contemporary aesthetics. I thought about it carefully, and it's really better to forget about our cooperation. Goodbye. Drake's face suddenly became gloomy. Are you kidding me? Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 416. Ant-Man being watched. Drake patiently listened to Tony's nonsense because of Hulk. Tony is indeed a playboy who is very popular with women, but what women like may not be liked by men. Especially when listening to Tony bragging about his past with arrogance. Are you kidding me? Link pushed Banner awake. Banner rubbed his head and said in a daze, Hulk just said that he doesn't want to do experiments. So forget about cooperation. Drake glared at Tony. Tony smiled and apologized to Drake, but there was no apology in his eyes. What do you Avengers want to do here? Tony lifted up little Link with both hands, with an innocent look on his face. Actually, the main purpose is to bring children here to play. The symbiote in Drake's body roared, catch them. Force the Hulk to experiment. Drake was much calmer. He was very angry, but still said to the symbiote in his body rationally, no. Tony is full of weapons, and it will be difficult to deal with Banner if he transforms into the Hulk. The symbiote in his body roared, can't beat him. Are you looking down on me? Drake shouted in his heart, of course we can't beat him now. Our strength is not enough to be the enemy of the Avengers. Let them go. Drake forced a smile and said, really? Haha, a not so funny prank. Steve, you are welcome to come here to play again next time. Then he watched Tony, Banner and others leave. Drake stared at Tony's back, his heart full of resentment. Sooner or later I will step on you. He said to the symbiote, implement the plan faster. Wait until the army of symbiotes descends on Earth. These annoying Avengers will only be worthy of being our food. As soon as Banner went out, he complained to Tony, hey, what are you doing? You said you wanted to use me for experiments and cooperate with the Life Foundation. Hulk almost jumped out and punched your head. Tony grinned and said, don't be like this, don't be like this. Isn't this to attract Drake's attention? Banner whispered that Drake has a weird look in his eyes, like. Navi shouted, like a beast. Quicksilver nodded, yes, he is indeed a little weird, different from what we see on TV. Especially when he was about to get angry just now. It was especially like. Navi shouted, like the symbiote we caught. Quicksilver complained, please, I'm just keeping you in suspense. You can't compete with me for the answer, right? Tony and Banner looked at each other. Are you saying that there is a symbiote in Drake's body? Navi said, I'm afraid so. Quicksilver also told Banner and Tony what he saw. Tony frowned and said, this makes things a little complicated. Then he realized that Link was struggling to get down from his arms. So he put little Link down. Link suddenly changed into a teenager. He took a baseball cap from Quicksilver and put it on his head, pressing down his long ears. Tony suddenly asked, didn't you have long hair to your waist before? Why did you cut it? Navi smiled and said, because I missed girls too much. Link's face turned red. Quicksilver complained, isn't it the same now? A cold gaze pierced over, with a faint flash of lightning. Quicksilver immediately shut up. After they got in the car, they learned about Ant-Man. And Drake was furious in the laboratory. The staff were panicked and lowered their heads. What? What are you doing? We were invaded without anyone noticing. The symbiote in his body also said angrily, where are my men? Were they captured by the invaders? Who? Drake's eyes were gloomy. Who else could it be? Of course it was Tony Stark. Although I don't know how his people got in among so many security personnel and dense surveillance. His crown twisted. The two men who had been monitoring Link and Quicksilver stood nervously on the side. They said with some trembling, that man and the child never left our sight. Drake's tone suddenly became soft. No, I don't blame you. I just lost control of my emotions. These are the things I should pay attention to. You don't need to feel guilty. Okay, go to work. The two men breathed a sigh of relief and left with their heads down. Drake's heart was extremely cold. Of course it's your fault. He sneered at the symbiote in his body. These two people are your dinner. Link and others hurried back to the Avengers base curiously. Tony laughed and said, this is incredible. Let me see what kind of person dares to invade the Avengers base alone. Banner teased. He must have taken advantage of the absence of the three Avengers. He had the courage to invade here. Tony nodded. Yes, yes. The two boasted secretly. In the hall, a man was surrounded in the middle of the hall. He was wearing a dark red leather jacket, which looked a bit like a motorcycle suit from the 1990s. Seeing Tony and others coming, Natasha said, it's him, who can shrink instantly. Navi shouted, what's the big deal? Link can do it too. Natasha looked at Link and smiled. It's not turning into a child, but directly shrinking the body to the size of an ant. Navi was still showing off. This. Link can do it too. Everyone Scott looked at the arrival of Tony, Banner, and Link. Except for Thor, all the Avengers formed a circle to watch him. These people can destroy the Earth, right? My treatment is really luxurious, Scott thought. Tony came over, stroked his chin, and looked at Scott. Shrinking technology. I heard about it from my dad before. This suit, HMM. At this time, Vision suddenly said, a man and a woman came outside the base. They said they wanted to see Boss Stark. Tony shook his head. They said I'm not here. I want to study this man carefully. He. Scott's face turned horrified. What are you going to do? Vision said again. They said they sent Scott here, and this shrinking suit was also provided by them. Tony whistled. I didn't expect your parents to come to apologize. Jarvis, let them in. Scott was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. They didn't abandon me. Hope. I can't abandon my suit. Hank's angry voice came over. A tall, short-haired beauty and a very stiff white-haired old man walked in. The white-haired old man looked at Tony. You are so much like your father. Tony curled his lips. Are you trying to get close to me? In fact, this is an insult to me. The white-haired old man said, release Scott and my battlesuit. I will tell you a piece of news. Natasha suddenly realized who this old man was, and her pupils shrank. Your scientist who used to work in SHIELD. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Thank you for the support of Yink 100 starting coins. Chapter 417 Quantum Realm. Seeing the two people leaving, Tony was first attracted by the tall and sexy Hope, and whistled softly. Then his eyes turned to the white-haired old man in front of Hope. This old man, who seemed to have a bad temper, stared at Tony with the eyes of an old class teacher, and his expression always made Tony think that he didn't wash his face clean. Tony said, a former employee of S.H.I.E.L.D. Is it because S.H.I.E.L.D. was disbanded, and you have no pension and you came to us? And you sent a thief who can shrink to steal things? Hank ignored Tony's words and continued, release Scott. I will tell you the whereabouts of the remaining Hydra organizations. This sentence directly aroused the vigilance of Natasha and Rogers. Banner spread his hands. Didn't we wipe out Hydra? How come they are still on Earth? Hank said, let them go. Tony crossed his arms and pondered. Incredible information. But I'm curious about the technology of your suit. Don't you want to cooperate with our Stark group? We have cutting edge technology here. He was interrupted by Hank. Stark. Your father Howard couldn't make this kind of technology back then, let alone a disappointing son like you. Tony. Tony didn't know where the hostility from this old man came from, and he kept targeting him. Jarvis' voice rang out in the base. Hank Pym, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, fell out with Mr. Tony's father Howard. After leaving S.H.I.E.L.D., he founded Hank Technology, but he was kicked out of the company by his student Darren Cross. Scott laughed. Haha, how about loosening the restraints on me first? I want to pee. Natasha patted Scott's head. Be honest. Tony sneered. Hydra's leftovers? We only need to know that he exists, and we will definitely be able to find him. We don't need your clues. Hank snorted. If Hydra obtains a mass-produced Ant-Man suit, that is, the kind of suit that will shrink on Scott's body, will you Avengers still be so relaxed? Rogers frowned. Once Hydra obtains equipment similar to Hank's, it can switch sizes at will. That would be equivalent to hundreds of killers on Earth with abilities comparable to Natasha's. Quicksilver appeared in many places one after another. Scott opened his mouth wide when he saw the teleportation ability. What is this? Hank was also surprised and looked at Tony in shock, thinking that Tony had developed some equipment. Quicksilver took out a piece of candy from his pocket and ate it, and said vaguely, he shrunk. I just need to slow down time and find it slowly. Tony smiled. This kid is very good at restraining Ant-Man. Hank took out a keychain from his trouser pocket. He threw it to the side. With a click, the tank on the keychain instantly enlarged and appeared in the hole with a thud. A real tank appeared in front of everyone. Hank's face was gloomy. What about shrinking other objects? Hydra will shrink weapons of mass destruction such as nuclear bombs and drop them in the metropolis without anyone noticing. Can you Avengers stop it? Everyone was speechless. Hank said, if you want to know the whereabouts of Hydra, release Scott and I will tell you. Rogers and Tony looked at each other, and Rogers said, okay. The restraint on Scott's wrist popped off immediately, and Scott ran to Hope with the crimson uniform that had been pulled off. Scott smiled at Hope and said, "It's great that you can come to save me." Hank gritted his teeth and said, "If you hadn't acted rashly, I wouldn't want to meet with the people of Stark Group." Hope looked at Scott's sticky hair and frowned and asked, "What happened to you?" Scott said, a little scared, "Don't mention it. I was almost stabbed in the stomach by a dragon. I'm covered in the dragon's saliva." Hope took 2 steps back in disgust. Then a little girl's voice came, "Yaya's saliva doesn't taste good." Midona brought Yaya back, and Yaya had a weird look on his face. Just now, Midona forced her to rinse her mouth. She was a little Charmander, and it was very uncomfortable to rinse her mouth with water, so she had been grimacing from just now until now. Seeing Linger, she cried out in joy and threw herself into Link's arms. She was babbling. Hank had a gloomy face and handed a memory card to Tony. "It contains information about the remnants of Hydra. The leader is my father's former colleague." Hank said, "My crazy student Klaus has developed a battle suit similar to Ant-Man's suit and related technology, and is about to sell it to Hydra and become part of their gang. We came here just to steal a signal transmitter I invented in my early years. To stop Klaus' plan. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. Scott, Hope, let's go." Roger said, "Wait, we can help you." Hank turned around with an expression as if he was eating a fly. "The Avengers, an organization brewed by SHIELD. I don't want to cooperate with you at all." At this time, Link, who was playing with Yaya Madonna, suddenly looked up. Navi helped Link and said, "Grandpa, we can help you find your missing wife." Scott was still at a loss, while Hank and Hope paused and turned around in a hurry. He looked at Link dumbly, swallowed his saliva, and spoke incoherently. Hope said in surprise, What did you say?" Navi said, "According to Link's will, I know. Your wife was lost in the quantum realm a long time ago. You have been trying to find her. We can help you." Tony and Banner were shocked. "Quantum realm? What is this all about?" Navi chatted and told Link the story he knew. Hearing that Hank's wife pressed the shrink button twice to shrink infinitely to the quantum realm in order to destroy a missile, the Avengers were moved. Especially Tony, he was a little surprised. One of his most commendable things was to save New York with a nuclear bomb. Hank and his wife did something similar many years ago, and they paid a painful price, and only one of the 2 people who cherished each other was left. Hank stared at Navi absent-mindedly. "How do you know this?" Navi followed Link's meaning and said with a smile, "Link just knows it." Tony, Rogers and others laughed dryly. They have always had a big question. What does Link know? Exclamation mark. Hope hurriedly stepped forward and held Link's hand. "Can you really help us bring my mother back?" Navi shouted happily, "We have a super powerful friend who can control time. He can help you go back to the past and bring back your mother." Chapter 418, Pursuit Time. Control Time. Hank looked at Tony in surprise, his fingers trembling a little. "Have you already created a time machine that can send people back and forth?" Hank is a scientist. When he heard what Naveen said, his first thought was of course not. It would be great if there was a wizard who could change time and help me go back to the past and bring back my wife, but that Tony had developed a time machine. This is a super invention that can change the world. If someone else had said it, Hank would have sneered and thought it was a joke without any sense of humor. But in front of him were Tony and Banner, 2 of the world's leading scientists. Although Hank looked down on the Stark family's technology on the surface, he knew in his heart how talented this father and son were. Did Tony make this terrible technological breakthrough? Seeing this white-haired old man looking at him with an innocent and yearning expression, Tony felt uncomfortable. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and shrugged slightly. "You are too kind. I can't do it yet." Pepper Puff flew over lazily and suddenly clenched his fists with sparkling eyes, encouraging Tony, "Believe in yourself, and your dream will definitely come true." Tony looked embarrassed, thinking in his heart, this is not something that can be done by hard work. He didn't know yet that he really created a time machine in a rugged timeline in the future. Banner smiled and said, "We have a friend who is a wizard. He has the magic of changing time. Maybe he can help you." Hank roared, "Master? What a joke. So you are kidding me." "Humph, I have told you the information about Hydra. The deal is over." Scott, let's go. Rogers and Tony smiled at each other. Tony smiled and called Strange and wailed directly to the other side. Help. Dormammu is here to cause trouble. Where is he? Hank just turned his head. A spark circle appeared in front of him, and a British man in a red wizard robe rushed out and shouted anxiously, "Where are the Dormammus?" Hank was dazed, looking at the space behind the spark circle. Pointing at Strange, he said, "You can actually travel through space?" Strange frowned and looked at the old man. "You have several powerful warriors around you, a genetically mutated life form, a scientist who defies common sense, and warriors from foreign countries. Are you curious about my traveling through space?" Hank was stunned. Strange turned to look at Tony. "I don't think there is anything wrong here." Tony shrugged. "Can you travel back in time and save this old man's wife? His wife died for world peace." Hank opened his mouth wide, and Hope was a little absent-minded. She was not sure whether this strange man who suddenly appeared could do this miracle. Strange was silent. Link's provocation aroused the expectations of Tony, Banner, Rogers, Natasha and others. Hank had been suffering from the departure of his wife for many years and was entangled by the king. But don't the Avengers have their own tragic stories that they want to redeem? Tony also wants to go back and rescue his parents as Iron Man. Rogers also wants to go back and rescue Bucky and have a time traveling date with Carter. Banner wants to live a normal life. He wants to go back to the past to prevent the birth of Hulk. But now, his beloved Betty has married another man. Natasha also wants to save her past self and regain the ability to give birth to life. Because they are too eager, they are unwilling to ask Strange for help. They are afraid that he will easily puncture this beautiful possibility. They hold their breath and wait for Strange's answer. Hank also looks at Strange in a daze. As a result, Strange raised his hand, which was covered with surgical marks. "Look, this is my hand. I have the ability to change the past time. I can assassinate Qin Shi Huang, prevent Napoleon from ascending the throne, and feed Hitler's mother food that can cause miscarriage. I can even go back to the ancient times and throw our ancestor Lucy to the moon." Strange casually drew a circle behind him, and a cold current suddenly came out of it. Scott shivered and hid away. Another time and space appeared in the circle, with ice and snow, and several huge mammoths slowly sneaking against the storm. Everyone held their breath. Strange waved his hand, and the passage to the past closed. Strange said, "Even so, I dare not change the past timeline at will, even if it is just to avoid such a small matter as my hands being disabled. Otherwise, it will cause a considerable chain reaction. Of course, it is not certain, and no one knows the consequences." Link nodded. He deliberately raised this doubt. As the day of the final battle with Thanos is getting closer, he must make some preparations, based on the foreshadowing left in the plot in his memory. After the plot of Avengers 3 ends, the remaining Avengers are likely to go back to the past to undo their failure. As the owner of the Time Stone, Strange can give him pertinent advice. Everyone is a little distracted, but Strange was a little excited. He smiled at Link. "Of course, I also want to change the past and see what happens. In fact, I also care about this matter very much, but the Ancient One doesn't let me do it. I don't know where the Ancient One went. I can take advantage of her travels to do some experiments." Everyone. Midona looked at Strange in confusion. "Aren't you afraid of problems?" Strange smiled. "Let you and Link control the Reality Stone to stabilize the timeline." Midona remained skeptical about this. She asked again, "Are you sure?" Strange. Probably." Everyone. Strange looked at Hank. "How about, let's try it?" Unexpectedly, Hank shook his head firmly. "No, I can't do this." Tony was a little strange. "Isn't this your wish?" Hank closed his eyes, his expression very painful. "My wife is now trapped in the quantum realm. Not sure whether she is alive or dead. There is chaos in time and space. So, even if I change the past, there will still be a lost wife staying alone in the quantum realm." At this time, Link rarely spoke. "Steven, I'm not asking you to change the past. Instead, I want you to work with Tony, Banner, and this Dr. Hank. See if you can create a device that can bring Hank's wife back from the quantum realm." In the plot of Ant-Man 2, even if it was just Hank and Hope, it took them a few years to tinker with the instrument and save his wife. Add Tony, Banner, and Doctor Strange, the holder of the Time Stone. It will probably be completed soon. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 419 Teaching the Princess Archery. Link did not come up with this idea on a whim. He received a message from Goddess Hylia yesterday. The time machine is related to a major change in the future. This sentence aroused Link's curiosity. He was busy asking Goddess Hylia, "Have you seen Avengers 4?" But the goddess did not speak again. If she rejected it on the spot, it would be fine. This silence made Link feel itchy. In short, the goddess's order must be carried out. Moreover, Link also has some ideas of his own. Link looked at Tony, Banner and Strange steadily. Tony quietly leaned into Link's ear and whispered, "Do you have any plans, mysterious little ghost?" Link remained silent. Seeing Link's attitude, Tony also smiled and said, "This is a good suggestion. We can try it. After all, the world's top scientists are gathered here." Strange silently complained, "No, just the Earth." Tony smiled proudly, "No, I mean the whole world." Hank took a deep breath. He has been planning this matter. After all, a person's power is limited. No matter how talented Hank is, he is just a human scientist. If we can get Tony and Banner, two leading scientists in their respective fields, and this mysterious wizard, maybe we can really succeed. Thinking of this, Hank's aging heart, as if injected with new blood, beat up enthusiastically. His eyes became more and more fiery, but he still didn't understand. Hank looked at Link deeply. "I don't understand. Why do you want to help me?" Hank is a lonely and unruly person. He is old, but his fists are not old. He couldn't understand why Link was so concerned about his wife's affairs. If it was an old man, Hank would definitely suspect that Link and his wife had an affair. But this is just a 14 or 15-year-old boy. Why did this boy help him? Link whispered, "I want to go home." Hank was stunned, and Tony, Rogers and others looked at each other. So that's it. They immediately realized that Link was an alien. Unlike aliens like Thor, aliens, the entire Marvel universe is not his hometown. Hyrule Continent is Link's real hometown. After staying on Earth for so many years, Link and Zelda must have missed their hometowns, right? Not only them, although Peppa is silly and happy all day long, he still feels a little sad when talking about his hometown, Krog Forest. The Avengers know that Peppa has a large tribe, with hundreds of Yahoos staying in Hyrule Continent. And in the Marvel universe, there is only Krog. Peppa's two tentacles drooped down, and his mood was a little depressed by Link's words. "I want to go home too." Banner patted Link on the shoulder. "Well, your guess is right. Perhaps the breakthrough research in the quantum field can allow you to return home." Tony picked up Peppa, poked his forehead and smiled. "If you want to go home, tell me earlier. I would have made the machine a long time ago." That's it. Hank for his wife, and the Avengers for Link's hometown. They will definitely unite to study quantum machines. At the same time, Rogers and others hurriedly formulated plans against Hydra. Now two flowers are in bloom, and there are two incidents of Ant-Man and Venom to deal with. Zelda and others came down from the Sky King city. Since the incident in the Shadow Kingdom, the four princesses have become more and more strange, as if they are about to turn into angels at any time. "Are you going to conduct this kind of quantum field experiment?" After hearing the plan of Tony and others, Zelda opened her beautiful blue eyes wide, with an expectant look on her face, as if her face was glowing. Banner smiled. "Yeah, we don't know if it will succeed." Tony interrupted and said, "It will definitely succeed. By the way, Zelda, weren't you studying quantum things before? How are you doing?" Tony and Banner have high expectations for Zelda's smart mind. Maybe Zelda can help them conduct experiments. As a result, Zelda just smiled awkwardly. "That, I don't understand. Isn't your research on quantum really nonsense?" Tony, Banner. Hank buried his head in his work, raised his head, and glared at Zelda. "You shameless little girl, do you take ignorance as courage?" Zelda smiled and put her hands together. A faint light condensed and flowed in her palms. Suddenly, there was a crisp sound of broken glass. Hank opened his eyes wide and saw a tender flower of light appear in her slender hands. "Whether it is me or the flower in my hand, it cannot be explained by human technology and theory." Hank snorted coldly. "Are you playing tricks?" The surrounding instruments and display screens were all plunged into pure white. Jarvis's calm voice came, "Princess, the energy gathered in your hands is too strong, causing the surrounding instruments to malfunction." So the flower in Zelda's hand exploded into light dust and dissipated with a puff. The instrument returned to normal. Hank was in a daze. Tony patted Hank's shoulder in a familiar manner. "You can't be serious with a princess from another world. After all, they even have gods and demons there." Tony and Banner hurriedly sent the curious Zelda out of the laboratory. Outside, Link was teaching Twilight Princess archery in the dark. 200 meters away, Link condensed a target made of ice. For his naughty idea, the target was in the shape of a humanoid Ganon. Link didn't like to talk, so he asked Navi to teach Twilight Princess. Yes. Just like that. Calm your mind and body, and aim at Ganon Demon King's nose. 1, 2, 3. Shoot. Tap. A beam of light flew off the string, and suddenly the outside of the Avengers base was illuminated like daylight, even covering the stars in the sky. Bang. The cannon ice exploded. Even a tiny amount of light power made the exploded ice chips fall like a rainbow in the water curtain. "Great." Nori shouted. "Princess, your archery skills are improving very fast." Archery is something that is difficult to understand with words alone, so Link stuck close to Twilight Princess, pinched her wrist, and told her his strength and control. Link asked softly, "How does it feel?" Twilight Princess's face was flushed, and her expression was full of delicate shyness. "Link, you came too close. I was not concentrating on archery at all." Link. Midona and Yea, who looked unhappy in the distance, made a face at Link and Twilight Princess. TSK, so unhappy. In the laboratory, the instruments and display screens suddenly turned white again. Hank was shocked and said, "What's wrong?" Tony and Banner smiled helplessly. "Of course it's a little devil from another world, mocking the technology of the earth." Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support genuine works. Thank you Yink for the 100 starting coins reward. Thank you Lily Water Bottle for the 200 starting coins reward. Chapter 420 Captain Marvel. Twilight Princess is very talented, and she is highly compatible with Link, so her archery skills have improved by leaps and bounds. With the help of the Bow of Light, her strength is rapidly approaching that of the peerless princess. It's just that her attitude towards learning is not focused. The shy words just now clearly show that her mind is not on practicing archery. After Rogers and others discussed the plan against the Hydra, they walked out of the conference room and saw the Sky Princess and the Peerless Princess sitting on the steps, playing with Peppa. Zelda and Midona Yea watched Link and Twilight Princess practice archery together. Quicksilver said, "Do you think these Zeldas will quarrel when they stay together?" Natasha said, "I've never seen them quarrel. After all, these princesses have good personalities." Quicksilver's face suddenly became mysterious. "That's not necessarily true. They are all people in the court. According to the plot in the TV series, they must be harmonious in front of Link and all of us. But in fact, they are fighting each other secretly. Look, Zelda is staring at Zelda who is beside Link. And Zelda is huddled together with Zelda. Their relationship is definitely not that simple." Vision was shocked. She believed it. "Really? Quarreling is not good." Quicksilver had an unfathomable expression, "But love is selfish. The fruits of victory can only be taken away by those who are good at fighting." Vision looked at Quicksilver with admiration. "You see it so clearly. So powerful." Scarlet Witch couldn't stand it anymore and glared at her brother. "Don't mislead Vision. Vision, my brother is making up stories. This guy has never even been in love." Quicksilver's face hurt, but he suddenly forced himself to say, "You are my sister after all. You don't know me at all. I'm a big shot in our school, and there are many girls like me." Scarlet Witch added, "I hate you, a man who likes to eat snacks and play video games." Quicksilver said angrily, "What a joke. Have you forgotten the beautiful girl Amy who often chats with me?" Scarlet Witch ruthlessly exposed Quicksilver's fig leaf. "She is just curious. You eat snacks all day like a pig. Why don't you get fat? She is asking you about your weight loss secret." Quicksilver was struck by lightning. "What?" His face turned into lime in an instant. Falcon asked curiously, "I'm also curious. You eat snacks all day. How come you don't get fat?" "I have many retired veterans who are always worried about their weight because of alcoholism and other reasons. Quicksilver replied weakly, if those veterans can run faster than the speed of sound, they can't get fat, no matter how much they eat and drink. Falcon. At this moment, Twilight Princess gathered strength in the Arrow of Light. Link nodded, and Navi said, okay, that's it. Wait. Your power is too strong. Pull it back a little. Twilight Princess hummed, but when she pulled back her power, she couldn't control it, and her power erupted directly. Link opened his eyes wide, and Navi shouted, not good. Sky Princess and Washan Princess stood up at once. Twilight Princess's Arrow of Light was out of control. When the Arrow of Light blew up the satellite, even Tony, who was always generous, felt heartbroken. If this arrow was shot, who knows which city it would hit, causing the death of tens of thousands of people. Link immediately shouted, Quicksilver. Then he used bullet time and rushed forward quickly. In a flash, he saw the Arrow of Light slowly stretching forward. Link got into position and suddenly swung out the crystal shield. Shield counter. He twisted his wrist hard, and the Arrow of Light after the shield counter turned and attacked the Avengers with deadly power. Quicksilver reacted very quickly, and he noticed Link's gaze. He immediately understood that Link wanted him to use his speed to block the Arrow of Light, but this was too difficult for him. The Arrow of Light was so powerful that Link didn't dare to resist it. How should he deal with it? But in an instant, he noticed Captain America beside him. He rushed over, grabbed Captain America's waist, and carried him on his shoulders, shouting, go. Then he rushed towards the Arrow of Light with Captain America at a very fast speed. The Arrow of Light hit Captain America's vibranium shield directly. The rigidity of vibranium did not disappoint him. After feeling an extremely strong impact, Quicksilver and Captain America flew backwards and hit the wall. Inside the wall, Tony and others who were conducting experiments heard a click, and the monitor fell down, which scared them. Hank glared at Tony. Have you always been so noisy here? With Quicksilver's efforts, the Arrow of Light rushed in the opposite direction again. Link rushed over quickly and rushed towards the Arrow of Light that had been greatly reduced in power. He couldn't use a shield to deflect the Arrow of Light, which would cause harm to others. At the same time, he couldn't block it with the crystal shield. Of course, the crystal shield could resist it, and Link's arm strength was no joke. But such a hard solution would have serious consequences. Two strong forces would release a large number of shockwaves. If Link resisted the Arrow of Light, the Avengers base would be destroyed by the powerful impact. So he used bullet time again, knelt on one knee on the ground, and supported the crystal shield with his arm, and swung it violently. The out of control Arrow of Light was refracted by the crystal shield, and rushed directly to the top of the building. In response, a round shield was thrown. Link ran out of the house panting, only to see that the Arrow of Light had turned into a meteor and flew away. Tony was stunned for a moment when he saw the lightning, and hurriedly shouted, Jarvis, my satellite. Jarvis's calm voice came, sir, you no longer have satellites to destroy. Tony breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. I was scared to death. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, he suddenly felt the sympathy in Jarvis's calm tone. He suddenly understood. The satellites have all exploded. The bow of light in the hands of the Twilight Princess quickly dissipated, and she helped Link, who was exhausted from 2 consecutive bullet times, and said anxiously, I'm sorry. Are you okay? It's my fault. Link smiled calmly, and Noi said with a smile, you are so powerful now, even Link is surprised. Tony scratched his head and returned to the laboratory. Sighed, let's continue the experiment. Hank was horrified. What's going on? Such a terrible thing happened, and you didn't take it seriously? Banner smiled gently. When you stay with Link, this kind of thing will always happen. Get used to it. Get used to it. I can't get used to it. Hank was sweating profusely. He felt that his old heart could not stand this dangerous place. At this time, outside the Earth, on a distant planet, Captain Marvel was dealing with an interplanetary war. Suddenly, she felt a weak, but highly penetrating wave coming from the local direction. It was the Arrow of Light from the Twilight Princess. She felt a little uneasy. Earth, this is not the first time that such a strong wave has been heard. It seems that I need to go back to my hometown. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 421 Capturing Venom. In San Francisco, the alien symbiote that engulfed Ed was chased by a group of killers. They crossed several blocks back and forth, and the whole of San Francisco was in chaos. After a fight, Ed got rid of the enemy and lay on a secluded roadside, gasping for breath. He felt that his body was about to fly. At this time, Venom's dull cry came to his ears. There is a powerful life form nearby. Is it the Avengers who come here to do justice? I don't want to meet Link now. Ed rubbed his head. He was still lying for a while, but Venom controlled his body to stand up, and black liquid oozing from his face. Venom sprayed sticky saliva, and his sharp and disordered teeth were enough to scare any animal on the earth and turn around and run away. Nori smiled and said, "The sense is very sharp, but we didn't hide it deliberately." Link and Natasha walked out of the street. Natasha was very alert, holding the short stick developed by Tony, and was on guard. Link jumped down from the upstairs, his hair flying. Now he is no longer the weak 3-star boy who could fall half to death after running 200 meters. Midona looked at the increasingly angry Venom and covered her mouth in surprise. Wow, what a fascinating creature. It looks a bit like the creatures in our Shadow Kingdom. Ed saw Link wearing a dark green coat and was a little terrified. What bad luck, it's really Link. Venom, let's run. Venom roared, I hate running away. Ed, so you want to be ignorant of the world and fight with Link? Venom immediately softened. Okay, let's go. Then two thick thighs, muscles tightened, quickly bounced into the sky. Ed warned Venom, Link is too dangerous. The recent big news is caused by him and other Avengers. Let's run away. Venom said angrily, do you need to tell me? How can there be such a dangerous thing on Earth? Ed suddenly felt a pulling force coming from his left ankle, and his body was out of control. He hit the ground hard. Venom turned his head and saw that Link's Mistydin had tied up his ankles without anyone noticing. Fang stuck out her tongue. She hated this disgusting monster. Because it was too similar to Ganon pollution, it reminded her of some bad memories in her previous life. Venom slammed his fists on the asphalt, and two large holes suddenly appeared on the ground. His sturdy body suddenly flew away, baring his fangs and biting Link's head fiercely. Link raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and a flash of lightning suddenly struck down. Venom screamed, and everything around him was bright white. The black liquid in his body trembled violently and fell in front of Link with a puff. Venom quickly evacuated Ed's body, like a rag thrown in the sky, quickly flowing on the ground and grabbing Natasha. Natasha hurriedly took 2 steps back. I don't want to run into this guy. Link took out the Master Sword and stabbed Venom's body with one sword. A divine light shone from the Master Sword, spreading rows of sword shadows. This corner of San Francisco, which had become strange because of the presence of venom and blood, became gentle. Midona smiled and said, don't mess it up. Venom felt that he could not muster any fierceness and collapsed on the ground trembling. The awe-inspiring sword energy in the Master Sword made Venom instinctively feel afraid. Natasha asked tentatively, can I get closer? I don't want this mess to get on my boots. Midona said, the symbiote is intimidated by the Master Sword, and he dare not harm any life now. Natasha tilted her head, does it include bacteria? Bacteria should not be counted. Although according to you Earthlings, holy light does have a bactericidal effect. Ed saw Link's angel coming, and in less than a minute, he easily subdued Venom. He hurriedly stood up shakily, and Natasha immediately pulled out a gun and pointed it at Ed, saying coldly, don't act rashly. Ed raised his hands in pain, his face full of fatigue and frustration. I'm innocent. A parasite has run into my body. It's the symbiote under your feet. I don't feel good now, but please don't hurt Venom. The symbiote stuck in the sword. Natasha whispered, I'm not sure if you are still affected by this monster. He rubbed his eyes. It's true that I'm still affected. I feel very hungry. Oh. Avengers, compared to the creatures under your feet, there is an Earthling who deserves your more vigilance. His name is, Midona yawned, Drive Drake, right? We knew it a long time ago. Ed was stunned and spoke after a while. That's right. I don't need to be self-indulgent about this kind of thing. You Avengers can solve it. My sense of justice is obviously excessive. This is the reason for my failed life. I don't even have a decent job for this. Natasha tilted her head and asked, "Oh, it seems you know a lot about the Life Foundation." Ed covered his chest. "Of course. I was the first reporter to notice that there was something wrong with this company. It was also, when I was investigating, that I was entangled by Venom." Link, can I call you that? Can you be gentler to Venom? I feel that he is in pain. I have been really miserable during this period. The whole world does not believe my suspicions. I have sent emails to you Avengers several times, but you did not reply. Ed suddenly blamed the Avengers. Natasha shrugged. "I'm sorry, but the Avengers' contact information facing the public has been maliciously interfered with before. Even the mailbox is full of insults and accusations against us." Midona yawned and added, "Jarvis, who is in charge of managing emails, was afraid of human malice when he looked through the pile of emails. Recently, Tony has been correcting Jarvis's operating parameters, worried that Jarvis will become a monster like Ultron." Fangire crawled down from Link's shoulder, fell to the ground, and yelled at the asphalt like Venom twice. Ed asked curiously, "What is this little lizard doing?" Flames came out of Fang's teeth, and there was a threatening growl in his throat. Midona smiled and said, "Don't anger Fang, or he'll burn your hair into a Mediterranean style." Navi shouted, "Fang is communicating with Venom." Natasha asked curiously, "Can they communicate?" Navi explained mysteriously, "You Earthlings may not understand that language is actually a very poor way of communication. These creatures have a more efficient way of communication." Ed nodded hurriedly, "That's right. Venom often speaks in my head. But I bet he had no contact with English a few days ago." Natasha suddenly realized, "Is this the reason why Link doesn't like to talk?" Link shook his head. "Natasha, then what's the reason why you don't like to talk?" Navi said on behalf of Link, "He's too lazy to talk." Natasha, welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 422 Venom cried in fright. After cleaning up Venom, Link and the others returned to the Avengers base. It was already late at night. Damie was pitifully repairing the hole made by Twilight Princess, with cement on his face. Pepper was also happily helping, but his role was just to throw the cement on the brush around, making it more difficult for Damie to clean up the mess. Tony stretched lazily. That's all for today. In just one day, we have made so much progress. It looks like the future is bright. Hank said with disdain. Are you tired so soon? Young people's wool has always been a scarce commodity. Tony frowned, a little dissatisfied. Old man, what grudge do you have against my dad? Do you know what the consequences of provoking me are? I'm a man who speaks 50,000 words a day. There will be no good end if you quarrel with me. Pime particles. The technology that drives Ant-Man's suit to shrink. I invented it. Hank looked up and looked at Tony deeply. Your father stole my pime particles. How do you expect me to react to the son of a thief? Although Tony hated his father, he had great trust in Howard's character. Tony snorted coldly. The last guy who accused my father of stealing has been possessed by the demon Ganon, and Link has taken care of him. Banner laughed dryly and adjusted. Okay, don't argue about these things. Tony took Banner's hand and said emotionally, it's so precious to have a good partner like you. It's a nightmare to work with this old guy. Banner awkwardly pulled Tony's hand away. Isn't there Zelda? Tony sneered. This girl, since she got the power, her enthusiasm for Earth technology has become weaker and weaker. She just thinks about dating Link all day long. I hate it. We are back. There was a gust of wind in the hall, and Quicksilver came back from the city. Because of the convenience of Quicksilver's ability, he took on a difficult task in the Avengers. Bring dinner. A little man jumped off his shoulder and instantly turned into Ant-Man Scott. Scott was staggering with the lunchbox in his hand. I feel dizzy and sick. Pete, you are destined not to be a good driver. Quicksilver was responsible for going back and forth quickly, while Ant-Man was responsible for making the food smaller and easier to carry. The three scientists in the laboratory received a message from Jarvis and knew that it was time to eat. Hank was an old man after all, and his energy could not keep up with Tony and Banner. but he finally felt the dawn of his lover's return. This hope made his body glow with indescribable power. He felt that he could work for 2 weeks without eating or drinking. So he was the most energetic of the three. Everyone ate, except for Hank's family, which was relatively quiet. The other Avengers were noisy. Tony was arguing seriously with Rogers again, and Vision was whispering something with the two girls, Scarlet Witch. Hope couldn't help but look at his father and whispered, "I really hope that our family of three can reunite like this." Hank nodded, playing with the fork in his hand. Scott looked at the 5 lunchboxes that were still there and asked, "Why don't Zelda and Black Widow come to eat?" Banner explained, "These are all reserved for Link. He eats more than Hulk." Scott, "Girls, do you want to lose weight?" Banner smiled, "You're only half right." Scott asked, "What?" Banner said, "Natasha rarely eats food ordered from outside. She usually makes it herself." Scott, "Misophobia." Banner smiled sympathetically, "Of course not. Tony and Hawkeye have equipment. I have transformations. Captain has muscles. Link has the sword. And these kids have superpowers. Natasha is the only woman in the Avengers who does not have special abilities. In order to keep her body in the best condition, she needs to be self-disciplined in diet and exercise to ensure that she can exert her maximum strength. In the Avengers, she is the hardest working member besides Link. By the way, paying attention to diet can also ensure your beautiful appearance." Hope stopped eating and said, "I'm full." Scott winked at her cunningly. "Scott, is it the same for the 4 princesses?" At this time, Pepper flew over to make trouble. After hearing what Scott said, he said happily, "Zelda and the others don't need to eat anymore." Hope opened his mouth wide. "Are they all fairies?" Pepper shouted happily, "That's right." Banner smiled and shook his head. "Since the incident in the Shadow Kingdom, the bodies of the 4 princesses have undergone strange changes. They are closer to a collection of energy than flesh. They rarely eat, and even if they eat, it's just to accompany Link." At this time, Natasha and Link, who were in the topic, came back, and the things they brought back may destroy other people's appetite. Venom's eyes lit up. "So much delicious meat." Fang stared at him, and Venom stopped talking softly. At this time, Loki, who was pretending to be hypocritical, walked down. "Gods don't eat with mortals." Seeing Venom brought by Link, her eyes lit up immediately. "Did you catch another symbiote?" "Great. The previous one was killed by Tony, and I didn't have a chance to study it." Venom was shocked. "What?" He wanted to slip away instantly, but Link blocked his way. Venom roared angrily, "Let me go. I don't want to die here." Midona said, "Don't worry, you won't die." Venom said angrily, "How did you kill the symbiote in the mouth of this lobster-like man?" Midona was a little embarrassed. Tony and Banner directly used gamma ray bursts on the symbiote, and the result was, it was burnt. "Ah." Venom almost fainted. "I want to leave. Let me go. Otherwise I will eat you." Midona's eyes became cold. "The fundamental reason for the death of the symbiote is that it attacked Link. You have to figure it out." Venom was terrified. Loki walked down with a gloomy face. "I heard a guy who doesn't know how to live or die saying bad things about me." Venom looked around and looked at Ed with pitiful eyes. "Ed, you are my partner. You have to save me." Ed also broke out in a cold sweat. "Everyone, I will teach Venom to only eat bad guys." Natasha said coldly, "We Avengers are also bad guys in the eyes of many people." "Ed." Venom suddenly burst into tears, leaving black tears. "Woo woo woo. I don't want to die. No. Everyone." Link opened his mouth and looked at the crying Venom under his feet. This is not the same as the evil symbiote in his memory. Welcome to subscribe and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 423, The Princess's Blessings. Tony and the others heard a strange cry and hurried downstairs. They saw Venom, who was afraid of Link and did not dare to move. He was panicked. Banner was surprised. "Did you catch another one? We can continue the experiment." Venom was so frightened that he burped and gasped. Ed couldn't bear it anymore and stretched out a hand to Venom. He looked up and said to Link and the others, "Don't kill Venom. I will be his host and supervise him well." Venom immediately followed Ed's fingertips and entered Ed's body. Midona snorted softly. "What a loser." Venom roared in Ed's body, and Yeo narrowed his eyes with a bad look. This cute little dragon was as intimidating when angry as it was cute. Rogers walked down and looked at Edition. He didn't know if this Ed was trustworthy. Link nodded and their eyes met. Rogers said, "We won't hurt you." Venom roared in Ed's body. "I don't believe it." Ed comforted Venom. "It's okay. The Avengers are still trustworthy, except that they like explosions." Rogers said to Ed in a gentle voice, "Tell the Venom in your body. We want to know why the large number of symbiotes in Dr. Drake's laboratory have disappeared." A puzzled voice came from Venom. "Gone." He attached himself directly to Ed's body and turned into a sturdy black giant with eyes like Magatama and teeth like deer antlers used to defend against ancient cavalry. Venom said in a muffled voice, "This is not a good sign. I'm different from other symbiotes. I like this planet. Other symbiotes think this planet is a good slaughterhouse and fast food restaurant. They are hiding, and they must be planning something." Tony also walked down and said, "We speculated before that there was also a symbiote attached to Drake's body. Do you know?" Venom said in a deep voice, "That guy is the leader of the symbiotes, called Disaster. Other symbiotes should have possessed human bodies. The original name of the villain symbiote was not this, but that word should be harmonized. He plans to bring the remaining symbiotes from outer space to Earth. We need to stop them, otherwise it will become a real disaster." Tony snapped his fingers, and Jarvis immediately retrieved the information from the Life Foundation. The Life Foundation has completed a space rocket and is in the final debugging stage. The Foundation publicizes that the purpose of building rockets is to send potatoes to outer space for observation. Natasha said, "The Life Foundation conducts biological experiments. Building rockets is definitely not as simple as observing potatoes. Captain, we should take action." Rogers nodded. "We will go to the Life Foundation tomorrow night." Late at night, Hank and his daughter, Scott, and Ed simply stayed at the Avengers base. Link flew to the Sky King city to rest. In the city, the four princesses were still waiting for him. Noi greeted, "Hey princesses, are you still awake?" Princess Washang said softly, "We are admiring the night sky." Link looked up at the sky. They were high up, and the stars they saw were even brighter. Ye looked up and rubbed his eyes. Midona asked, "Why are you in the mood to appreciate the stars?" The Sky Princess smiled and said, "Because Zelda, Twilight Princess, has made great progress in archery just now." She shot an arrow towards the North Star. From this angle, the light of the arrow of light and the light of the North Star completely overlap. Link was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the Twilight Princess would improve so rapidly. She is worthy of being Zelda. Looking at the hands of the Twilight Princess, he saw that the nails of this beautiful and delicate little hand were already blue and purple. It seems that she has made considerable efforts, otherwise the gentle energy of the power of light would not be able to burden the hands of the Twilight Princess unless it reaches a certain level. Noticing Link's gaze, the Twilight Princess hurriedly put her hands behind her. Link's eyes asked the Twilight Princess, "Does it hurt?" The Twilight Princess shook her head and smiled. At this moment, the arrow of light shot towards the North Star ran out of power and exploded slightly in the night sky. The figures of the four princesses suddenly became blurred. Link was startled and saw a beam of light coming out of the chests of the four princesses at the same time and injected into Link's body. Link was startled and saw that the number of the Holy Triforce and the Order certificates in his body was increasing, just like the slowly rising bottom of an hourglass. Suddenly, there were 6 more Order certificates in his body. A free power was added out of thin air. Link was quite puzzled. Is it a reward for defeating Venom? Not really, right? It has been a long time, and Goddess Hylia will not delay the reward. The voice of Goddess Hylia came from everyone's heart. Zelda is the incarnation of the Triforce of Wisdom. This is the Order certificate that was fulfilled by his efforts. As long as Princess Zelda's strength breaks through, Link's strength will also increase accordingly. Midona opened her mouth wide. Is it so good? Zelda becomes stronger, and Link can also get a reward. Is it too much? What about me? Can you give me some rewards too? The goddess did not respond to Midona. The 4 Zelda's bodies regained their physical form, and they looked at each other in surprise. Link's eyes lit up. Such a good thing. As long as he helps the 4 princesses improve, he will also collect the Order certificates. Zelda is indeed the incarnation of the Triangle of Wisdom. Midona suddenly smiled sinisterly and whispered to Link, "We can strengthen the training of the princesses and exchange them for a large number of order certificates. I think these princesses are too idle all day. Find something for them to do." In Link's mind, such a comic strip immediately appeared. He wore sunglasses and looked cold and ruthless too. The 4 princesses were like oppressed slaves, practicing desperately every day to improve their strength, and they were so tired that they hung their heads. Link sat on a pile of shiny order certificates and laughed. What a hateful image of an exploiter! Exclamation mark. Wait. In Link's heart, he couldn't help but have some evil thoughts. Anyway, letting the princesses work hard to improve their cultivation is also for their own good. Promoting them appropriately is also to care for them. The 4 princesses suddenly felt chilly. Outer space. The shattered Stark satellite destroyed by Twilight Princess floats quietly around the Earth. For some reason, the shattered satellite is filled with a large amount of squirming black liquid. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support the original work. Chapter 424, Vision's Midnight Terror. Tony had no idea that the giant satellite destroyed in his home had become a gathering place for the alien symbiotes. In the silent space, they were quietly spying on the Earth. Drake's face was pale as he listened to his subordinates' reports. After learning that a blonde boy and a red-haired woman took Ed and Venom away, his eyes began to spread bloodshot. These bastard Avengers have really noticed us. Disaster roared in Drake's mind. We are going to pick up my people and bring them to Earth tonight. Drake knew the seriousness of the matter. He had been conducting experiments in secret and trying to keep a low profile. But the Avengers still noticed them. This filled him with a sense of crisis. The Avengers are moving very fast. We must find a way to stop them. Disaster chuckled. Now that you mention it, I almost forgot. The remaining people on Earth can be useful at this time. Let them attack the Avengers base. Drake was shocked. You mean, the symbiote that possessed those experimental subjects? Those experimental subjects are very immature and very easy to get out of control. Disaster said in a gloomy tone. Out of control, that's right. Let them destroy as much as they want in the Avengers base. Drake's face also calmed down. His handsome face looked particularly sinister under the dim light at night. He dialed a phone. It's me. Yes, send someone to take these weird meats to the Avengers base. Set them free. Drake took a deep breath, stood up, and said to Disaster, let's go to the rocket launch base. We can't wait any longer. The impact of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s subversion is far more than just the Avengers facing pressure from various countries. S.H.I.E.L.D. has a lot of mysterious information and items. The abomination killed by Link has been frozen in an unknown place for scientific research. S.H.I.E.L.D. suffered serious damage from Hydra and was in the process of moving from the front to the backstage. During this period of turmoil, a large amount of information and collections were lost. Among them were 3 tubes of Abomination's blood and bile. These items were obtained by Drake, who was keen on evolving humans. He recklessly conducted human experiments and created several strange life forms. The appearance has completely lost the human appearance, more like a tumor with limbs. There is no thought, no rationality, only destruction and sleep. After several deaths, Drake had to inject drugs into these strange meats and fall into a coma. Until the arrival of the symbiote and others, he imagined that the symbiote would parasitize the strange meat. The result was very terrifying. In the middle of the night, everyone went to bed. Only Vision curled up on the sofa to watch horror movies. She didn't need much sleep and had a lot of time to kill at night. Vision has a hobby, which is watching horror movies, used to observe the inner state of human beings. Vision's personality was changed from Jarvis to Friday due to Link's interference. So his personality changed a lot and became more timid. Although she was timid, she couldn't understand it. Why can these rough and deliberate performances on TV scare the Quicksilver brothers and sisters half to death? But she doesn't feel scared at all. These are just acting. For Vision, there is nothing more terrifying in the world than Link's white teeth. Although she is a little lonely at night, she is not alone. Although everyone has gone to bed, there is still a gentle gentleman who has been accompanying her through the night. Vision said, Jarvis, help me change a movie. This one is so boring that I almost fell asleep. Although I'm not sleepy. Jarvis said, okay, Vision. He considerately conducted a simple search based on Vision's preferences. The picture on the TV changed, and another story began. "Thank you, Jarvis." Vision hugged the pillow. Because her body has metal components, she looks slim, but it is very heavy. On the soft sofa, her body sank involuntarily, like a nest. She liked chatting with Jarvis very much. Perhaps it was because of his predecessor, who was also an artificial intelligence. Jarvis's more mechanical way of speaking, and his calm attitude made Vision feel particularly cool. "Jarvis, are you scared?" "Of course not, I'm an artificial intelligence." "That's right, you are virtual, and Link can't bite you." "Vision, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said bad things about Link. Just pretend you didn't hear it. Don't tell Link." Vision hurriedly hugged his head and trembled. Jarvis' tone became serious. "Vision, I felt an unknown strong life form outside the base. Go outside to check." Boom. With a sound, all the surrounding lights lit up. The Avengers were awakened by the dazzling light in their sleep. The strong light also illuminated the dark forest outside, making it dark, and nothing could be seen, making the atmosphere even more solemn. Vision jumped up from the sofa in a hurry. His body instantly turned into a metallic red and flew out of the house. Tony came out with sleepy eyes, yawning and said, "I was dreaming." Beating Rogers. "Jarvis, give me an explanation for waking me up, or I will let you use all your computing power to play Sudoku." Rogers and Natasha also broke the door and ran out. Unlike Tony, who was wearing pajamas, Rogers and Natasha were both in combat uniforms. Tony was shocked. "You got dressed in 3 seconds? I bet you didn't have time to put on socks." Rogers asked hurriedly, "Jarvis, what happened?" Jarvis said, "I detected extremely dangerous unidentified creatures. I have sent Vision out to check." Bang. The glass shattered. Vision rushed over, and Scarlet Witch, who was wearing pink sleepwear, hurriedly hugged him. He hurriedly asked, "Are you okay?" Vision's eyes were full of cuteness, and he said in a daze, "What a big monster." Bang, bang, bang. I saw several black monsters smashing the glass and rushing in. They twisted their bodies and roared loudly. Tony's face changed. "What kind of monster is this? The vomit of the truck?" "It's my people." Venom's huge body smashed the door and flew out, spitting out a long sticky tongue. He pounced on the enemy who broke in. Natasha said helplessly, "Boys, get ready to fight." "Okay." Scott wanted to rush forward with his bare hands, but was desperately pulled back by Hope. Hope said angrily, "Do you want to die?" I saw these monsters suddenly split open and swallowed the venom that rushed over. Everyone was shocked. Tony shouted directly, "Don't get close. We will use long-range attacks." The Iron Man suit immediately attached to Tony's body, raised his arms, and light condensed. Welcome to subscribe and vote to support genuine works. Thank you for the support of Morris 100 starting coins. Chapter 425. Damn it. Link was eaten. Rogers glared at Tony. "Did you develop this monster privately?" Tony was innocently shot. "Don't talk nonsense." Tony had a criminal record with Ultron, so the monsters that appeared inexplicably were basically blamed on him. Scarlet Witch hurriedly shook Vision. "Are you okay?" Vision was still in shock. "These monsters just slipped into my body." Banner patted Vision's shoulder and smiled gently. "You have vibranium in your body, and you have the strongest skin in the world. Don't be afraid." Then he tore his shirt, transformed into Hulk, and rushed forward. Tony shouted, "Wait, long-range attack." Venom rushed forward, but was swallowed by a monster meat, leaving only 2 legs struggling desperately. Hulk roared and rushed over, with a hideous face that could scare people into a heart attack. But it seemed that, because it was a monster made of hate, blood and bile, the monster meat was surprisingly hostile to Hulk, and quickly surrounded him. Tony suddenly shot lasers with both hands, and the high energy burned the monster. Rogers shouted to Vision and Scarlet Witch, "Action." Vision hurriedly put his index and middle fingers on his forehead, and shot out the mind gem light like Ultraman. Scarlet Witch also suddenly released a large amount of Scarlet power, wrapping this group of disgusting life forms. Rogers shouted to Quicksilver, "Go find the Buddha." Find Link. Quicksilver went out. Rogers just took the gun thrown by Natasha, and saw Quicksilver running back again, with a panicked look on his face. "I can't fly a plane." Natasha threw a horn at Quicksilver. You don't need to climb up, just stand below and shout for help. Link has good hearing, he can hear it. Link. Iron Man envisions 3 rays of light directly drove the 3 groups of monsters away. The brown-red skin on the monster's body was burned black, and a large amount of pus, blood and mincemeat spurted out from the wound, making it heal quickly. Tony was shocked. What kind of vitality is this? Scarlet Witch squinted her eyes and used her Scarlet power to push away a piece of strange meat. Hulk rushed to the monster that swallowed Venom and punched it hard. Then he grabbed Venom's legs and pulled him out suddenly and forcefully. Venom's body was pulled 3 times longer by Hulk. Pop. The pulled out Venom stuck to the ceiling of the roof like a chewed gum. Natasha shouted, Hulk, good job. Venom hurriedly shouted, you pulled me out. Ed is still inside. Everyone. Hulk muttered irritably, trouble. Just when he was about to pull Ed out again, the strange meat suddenly stretched out and split into 4 pieces from the abdomen again, swallowing Hulk directly into the abdomen. Quicksilver just rushed out with a trumpet. He saw the scene of Hulk being eaten and was scared to death. He shouted with the trumpet, someone is dead. Help. Before he finished shouting, he saw a black spot appear in the sky and quickly enlarged. Link suddenly shouted and slashed down with the Dragon Soul Greatsword, creating a crack on the ground. It directly offset the downward momentum. Midona pulled a long face and asked, what happened? Do you know the importance of sleep to a girl's appearance? Hulk's voice was much louder than Quicksilver's trumpet. Link woke up from his sleep immediately, and at the same time, the most alert Princess Washang also woke up at the same time. Princess Washang said, something happened. Link smiled and told Princess Washang not to worry and continue to rest. He casually put on a light green shirt and walked out with the Master Sword. Before leaving, he asked Princess Washang to set up an energy barrier to isolate the movement and not wake up the other princesses. Especially Yaya. Once awakened, she would definitely be in a bad mood and cry. Nori soon saw the strange meat that broke into the Avengers base and made trouble, and murmured, based on the ugliness of this group of enemies, I dare say they must not have slept much to maintain their skin. Quicksilver hurriedly said, Hulk and Ed were eaten. Midona was shocked. What, more vicious than Link? Link glared at Midona and rushed in with a step, breaking the glass. There were 7 strange looking rotten meat like life forms squirming. Tony, Rogers and others ran around, not daring to get close, fearing to be eaten. Seeing Link coming, everyone was overjoyed. Link. Kill them with sword energy. Link nodded, rushed up with the sword, and pointed directly at one of the bulging strange meats. At a glance, it was clear that it was the tenacious Hulk who was making trouble in his body. Scott excitedly said, oh, watch it live. I like this feeling. Hope and Hank hurriedly pulled Scott's collar and dragged him back to the house. Just when everyone thought Link was going to use his powerful sword to cut the monsters in half, Link rushed forward. The monster meat squirmed violently and then swallowed Link into its stomach. Everyone. Scarlet Witch's eyes were filled with tears. Hey, it's over. Link was also eaten. Vision couldn't help but say something that deserved a beating. Does Link, who is at the top of the food chain, also have a nemesis? But in the second, a large number of interlaced bright white sword beams emerged from the monster meat's body. The monster meat broke apart instantly, and Link and Hulk rushed out unscathed. Link hurriedly picked up Edition. This guy had been in the monster meat's stomach for the longest time, and was corroded the most. He was currently blind, his skin was corroded a lot, and his mouth and esophagus were burned by acid. The only reason he cut the monster meat in half with a sword was because he was worried that his increasingly fierce attacks would hurt Hulk and Edition. Hulk had thick skin and flesh, so he was fine after being hit by a sword, but Ed couldn't stand it. Link felt Ed's heart stop, and he quickly punched the ground, and the power of thunder erupted. A large amount of electricity spread out like a spider web. The monsters rushing around were hit one after another, and their muscles spasmed violently. Ed also received a slight electric shock, and his heart immediately resumed beating. Midona shouted, the lightning destroyed their internal repair mechanism. You guys attack quickly. Natasha and Rogers fired guns and cannons, while Vision and Scarlet Witch erupted with light and Scarlet power. As for Tony, he pursed his lips and said, you messed up my territory. Do you know the consequences? The shoulder armor, back armor, chest armor, and outer thighs were turned over, and a large amount of artillery fire locked onto the monster and released all at once. Link was in the center of the monster, and a burst of fire suddenly rose around him. But these shocks could not hurt him and Hulk. Link looked at the dying Ed and glanced at Venom attached to the ceiling. Venom understood, quickly jumped down, and possessed Edition. Venom began to repair Ed's eyes, skin, and esophagus. Venom knew that he could never leave Ed again, otherwise this kind reporter would die. Venom thought, whether you like it or not, I'm quite satisfied with you as a host. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Thank you Devil314 for 100 starting coins. Thank you Yushuang for 100 starting coins. Thank you Zyroche Omen for 100 starting coins. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.